Welcome to 100 Days in 3 indie games. Cornucopia, the 2.5D farming and life sim. Dave the Diver, where you play as a scuba diving sushi store owner. And Traveler's Rest, the innkeeper simulator, where you renovate your home into a bustling tavern. Sell your very own produce while exploring the world and crafting relationships. This is quite a long video, so grab your snacks and enjoy this compilation. I was dropped straight into my brand new tavern and got to work setting up the table and letting in my first customers. I served them up some grime, rewarding me with some new furniture, as well as some porridge and kegs of grog. And after serving all of my customers, they eventually left, leaving me to explore the world outside. I got to work chopping a bunch of trees, obtaining a sawmill, and placing it down behind my tavern. And while I set it to craft some planks, I headed up to explore. I found a bunch of miners who were complaining about an ice block. Curious, I wandered up to see what they were talking about. I might be wrong, but it's probably this. Yo, there's an ice block. Hello. Hey, good luck, man. For a situation you've got yourself into. Not my problem. Yeah. Returning to my sawmill, I collected the contents, obtaining a pickaxe, and after chopping just a couple of rocks, I was rewarded with a smelter. I placed it down next to my mill, got some copper smelting, and headed to bed. I headed outside on day 2 and opened the mailbox from which I could order ingredients, but alas, I am poor, so I got to work chopping a bunch of rocks in the area. I even decided to head downwards, where I found a whole nother area. There, I chopped some iron ore and returning to my smelter, cooked them all up. Then, while waiting for them to smelt, I wandered back upwards to greet the 3 miners, this time complaining about someone named Clive. If Clive opens his big mouth again, I'm gonna lose my temper. Who's Clive, man? You Clive, good sir? I visited the Iceman again, found a waterfall and a broken down bridge, as well as a stairway blocked by some massive stones. I could only wonder what was up there. Returning to my tavern, I decided to open up shop, and after serving them all, I was awarded with reputation level 1, which unlocked a bunch of skill trees for food and beverages. Then noticing that I had a quest to craft a small table, I used all of my resources on a small bench, only later realizing that there were different things. I spent the night gathering back my lost materials. There was a black cat in my tavern the next morning, which apparently now lives here. I headed outside and collected all of my resources, finally crafting up the table that I needed. When it finished, I was able to unlock the crafting room, which finally gave me the ability to cook my own food, which I did in the form of porridge, as well as brew my own beer, which I got started with by crafting some malted barley. But that took a while, so I opened up the tavern for a couple of hours. When everyone left, I set up my newly crafted table, then decided to head upwards in search of coal for fuel. Heading left, I eventually came across a soldier-looking man who refused to let me pass. Intimidation didn't work, so I headed up instead, finding a boulder that seemed to be blocking a cave. I had no explosives with me, so I left, finding my coal near the Iceman. By this time, my barley was complete, so I set up my station and officially got my very own beer brewing. To celebrate the occasion, I opened up my tavern until the early hours of the morning. I thought my beer was done the next morning, but I had forgotten to ferment it, so I dropped it into a tank and headed outside. I needed another bench for my table, so I got to work chopping a bunch of trees south of my tavern, making sure to replant the saplings as I went. Eventually I got enough, so I got it crafting, then wandered back to my tavern where my beer was actually finished. I was rewarded with a shovel and prompted with the message, "It's time to farm." So I found and cleared an area next to my tavern, dug up some soil, tilled it all, and planted my very first seeds. Deciding that I wanted more, I ordered 20 corn from the mailbox, then while the goods were being delivered, I opened up shop with my new beer. Eventually at almost midnight, I had run out of beer, so I closed, getting to reputation level 2. And with my new experience points, I learned how to cook a chicken. I spent some time cleaning up from last night, then grabbing my beer, I discovered a couple new recipes I could now cook. I headed out and grabbed my corn seeds that I had ordered, tilled some ground, and planted them. Then wanting to cook something, I ordered a whole bunch of raw meat, and while the order got delivered, I got to work mining a whole bunch of ore and smelting it up. Eventually the meat did arrive, so I headed to the crafting room and got some chicken cooking. I then headed back outside where I ordered a feeding bowl and a bed for my cat, and while that got delivered, I opened up shop excited to sell some chicken. My tavern stayed open for the rest of the day, and when night fell, I had a peek outside and my goods still hadn't come, so I ordered some lanterns and headed to bed. My lamps had arrived, so I placed them on the wall and headed out to harvest some corn and barley. I then ordered a bunch of hops via the mail and got some barley grinding using my new machine. Noticing I had a bunch of experience, I opened my tech tree and learnt soup, which I could hopefully sell for a lot more. But my cat bowl and bed still hadn't arrived, so I was starting to doubt whether I'd actually bought them in the first place, and placed a new order. Heading back to my kitchen, I realized that I could add meats to my soup to make it sell hugely, so I opened my tavern with the goal of making a bunch of money and reaching reputation level 3. And by nightfall, I had reached my goal, closed up shop, cleaned up, and had a look at the player upgrades I had unlocked, deciding to level up my haggling and bartending skills. Harvesting all of my corn, I decided to work on my farm for all of today. After learning some new fruit in the tech tree tree and ordering some seeds, I got to work clearing and tilling another large piece of land. When the seeds arrived, I realized that some of them took up a bunch of space and had to increase my farm by a lot. Eventually, I got bored of it, so I returned to my home where I got some beer brewing and purchasing some candles to light up the tavern. While I waited for them to revive, I chopped a bunch of resources and got smelting. Then, setting up my new candles, I opened up the tavern for the night. I headed upwards the next morning to see if I could help Pharaoh. I certainly couldn't. After collecting a whole bunch of resources for no real reason, I returned to my tavern, cooked up some soup, and opened up shop. Realizing that I was out of ingredients, I bought a whole bunch of raw meat and manned my shop for the rest of the day, patiently waiting for the goods to arrive. I also wanted to upgrade my reputation, but with no beer, I neither did that nor made any money at all. So I closed up near midnight, ordered a heap of yeast for alcohol brewing purposes, and headed off to bed. But collecting some fruit and crafting some oil lamps, I decided today was the day for exploration. So I brewed up some fruity ale and headed downwards. I found a path heading left, and past it was a large area with a house and a man named Buzz, who introduced himself as my neighbor, saying he just moved in. Leaving him to unpack, I stole a bunch of produce from his fruit trees and spotted a strange rock person. Carefully approaching, it turned out it was selling things, along with the chicken on its head. So I happily bought 12 eggs, and after exploring the area for a little more, I returned to my tavern. There I used the thieved fruit to make some expensive fruity ale, and after placing down my oil lamps, I opened up shop. I actually made some money this time with my beer, but I still closed without hitting reputation level 4. I planted a bunch of seeds the next morning, then collected the birdhouse and smithing table I had crafted last night. Placing them both down, I headed downwards to see if Buzz had moved in yet, which he hadn't, and to see if Bob the Golem was selling anything new, which he wasn't. So returning to my tavern, I set my sights on a large table, so I got to work chopping a bunch of trees and eventually got some crafting. But seeing as it would take some time, I set a goal of reputation 4 and opened up a store. Making sure to keep everything crystal clean, lit up and comfortable, I eventually achieved my goal, unlocking order quests. This was certainly exciting, but of course, first things first. I deforested the entire area behind my home and crafted up the bench. Finally, I opened up the orders board to find all of them needing herbs. So I used some experience to learn how to buy some and purchased the seeds. But digging up all the ground was taking way too long, so I bought over my smelter and made it do all the work for me. I then tilled up the area and planted my miscellaneous herbs, cooking up some stew, the recipe I had also learned, and after ordering some mint, I opened up the shop. Midway through, I collected the goods, and after a while I closed, grabbed my other bench which I placed down, and got to work cooking the stew and pork the board had asked for. Claiming a whole bunch of experience, I upgraded my cleaning, haggling, and bartending skills. I harvested my wheat, rice, strawberries, and barley the next morning, then returned to my kitchen where I cooked up some fruity sausages. I then walked back over to Buzz to see if he was done unpacking, which he wasn't. I was also interested in any new Bob stock, which turned out to be ores at an exuberant price, but he patted the chicken on his head, so I forgive. Heading back to the tavern, I checked the orders board, then purchased a stupid amount of various meats and ingredients. I then stood still for like an hour before opening up my store as I wanted more money. 4 filled tables was the maximum amount of customers I could deal with alone, and I was so busy the entire time. So by nightfall, I closed down and spent the night cooking the orders board dishes, completing all 3 and upgrading my farming and haggling skills. I scythed all of my herbs, then spent some experience on learning how to craft large chests, which, after collecting resources from absolutely everywhere, including Bob the Golem, I got one crafting, unlocking the recipe for bread, bought some bread yeast along with a bunch of juniper seeds. After collecting and placing down my large chest, I saw that I was almost halfway to reputation 5, so I opened up my tavern and served customers until the dead of night. Eventually, after locking up, I collected and planted some juniper seeds, then got some more beer brewing. Making my bed the next morning, I headed out and harvested the last of my grapes. Then seeing that I was so close to reputation 5, I opened up the tavern, deciding not to close until I achieved it. 4 tables was just so much to take care of, but it was worth it when I eventually hit my goal, being prompted to check the delivery box. So I kicked everyone out, cleaned up the floor, and headed out in anticipation. I got a magic broom which automatically keeps my floors clean. This was absolutely huge, but before I headed to bed, I decided to cook all 3 dishes for the notice board, finishing near midnight. Ordering some rugs the next day, I headed upwards and got to work chopping all of the resources before wandering back down and cutting some trees. I then visited Buzz and Bob the Golem before returning to my tavern. There, I made the decision that since I no longer had to clean up spills on the floor, to build up another large table and 2 benches. So I got some planks cutting, went and chopped trees, obviously replanting, made some nails, and went back to chopping before making some planks and repeating this until I got a bench and a table both being crafted up. I grabbed my new bench and table the following day, then crafted up one last bench. I headed inside and spent some time reorganizing the tavern to fit the new table, as well as adding some rugs for decoration. And wanting to level up my reputation, I opened up store and got serving. The magic broom was a massive help and it was satisfying to watch it do its thing. I also petted my cat, getting it to maximum hearts. Midway through, I set up some candles and put on the fireplace, and eventually by midnight, I closed up shop. I ended the day getting some newly learned white wine brewing. I tried to make some wine, but I needed a yeast. So I ordered some, then heading over to my smithy, I crafted up some fence, which I placed behind my juniper plants, for some reason. I then began clearing up, but the yeast had arrived, so I scrubbed it, ran inside, and got some sweet, fruity white wine brewing. I then decided, since wine costs lots of money, to start a large grape farm. Clearing some trees, I dug up all the grass with my shovel only, and got to work tilling. Along the way, I began planting the saplings, and eventually I had 10 white and 10 red grapes planted. My next endeavor was to craft a stone workshop, so I crafted up the materials, chopped stone, and crafted some candle holders while I waited, before eventually getting it crafting. Collecting some wine and harvesting my junipers the next morning, I purchased a bunch of decor for my tavern, apparently completing a quest giving me a stone workshop. This would be great if I hadn't spent the entirety of last night crafting one. So now I had two, so I placed one down and put the other in the trash. I then cooked some dishes for the quest board, and wanting to sell some of my wine, I opened up shop. I made a huge amount of money that day and was happy to see my reputation bar slowly increasing. Heading back, I learnt the recipe for jam, and wanting to sell some, I tried to cook it. But I needed glass jars, so I bought literally 50 of them, closed up shop at exactly 12, and cleaned out my tavern. I placed down the furniture that had arrived, then got to work cooking some bread. Then harvesting the last of my pears and checking on my grapes, I replanted some juniper seeds, then seeing how close I was to reputation 6, I opened up the tavern. I got a whole heap of money thanks to my wine and managed to level up not too long after, unlocking hireable staff. Excited about this, I closed up, ordered a bunch more ingredients and furniture, and checked out the workers. Deciding that I'd hire one tomorrow, I spent the night cooking up all kinds of unique dishes. I once again placed the new furniture down, then learned how to cook pies, which I got started doing. Realizing that I had some stone pathway in my inventory, I placed them down before finally hiring a person to wipe down tables. After around an hour, they arrived and entered, so I opened up. I got to work cooking up a whole bunch of stuff and was happy with my wide available menu, but the wiper boy just wasn't very helpful, and now that he was working, I had nothing to do but sit behind the counter. I slowly but surely inched towards reputation level 7, and when I hit 10 gold in the bank, I closed the tavern and got back to cooking. I didn't have enough fruits to make proper wine, so I headed down to Buzz's house to steal his produce, but there was nothing there, so I was forced to spend some experience learning tropical fruits, bought a ton of seeds, and got to work clearing a large area. The seeds eventually came, and I had just enough space to fit all 20 trees. When I'd finished, I just knew these would make me rich. I ended the day harvesting my grapes and getting some wine going. I got some more white wine brewing the next morning, then harvested all of my junipers, then deciding to craft up a mortar and pestle to see what it did. While I waited, I chopped a bunch of resources below my tavern, eventually collecting it and placing it down in my crafting room. Turns out, it's purely cosmetic. Then seeing that I was around halfway to reputation 7, I opened the tavern and sold drinks for the entire night, loading up some more grapes at 1 a.m. Harvesting some more junipers the next morning, I headed down to Buzz, sure that he had moved in. How is it possible to be unpacking one box for the last 23 days? Out of frustration, I bought 12 eggs. Returning to my tavern, I got some ores smelting, then seeing as I had run out of coal, I wandered down to the mining area. I stumbled across the mystery boulder again, but there was still no way of moving it. So I returned home and picked up the new fertilizing tank I had crafted, placing it in my crafts room, and seeing how close I was to leveling up, I opened up the tavern. I served food and cleaned tables until the late afternoon when I got reputation 7 unlocking construction mode. So I placed my construction table and got to work building up a second floor to my tavern, including a crafts room and a rentable room for anyone wanting to stay the night. I ended the day cooking up the quest board foods, delivering them, and leveling up my farming and bartending skills. I wanted serious profits from my rented room, so after harvesting my grapes and planting some more, I got to work crafting up a large window for the room. While I waited, I went to the mountains and gathered coal, heading down to gather iron ore, and bought an expensive amount of furniture. Eventually, the window finished and my goods were delivered, so I headed upstairs and placed them all down, dramatically increasing the comfort levels, and hopefully how much I would get paid. So I opened the tavern, and when someone offered to pay for the room, I got haggling. unfortunately, I suck, and he ended up paying less than what he had first offered, and I couldn't even see what it was doing up there. Gotta give the NPC some privacy, I guess. I booted them out the next morning, then seeing how dirty they left the room, I brought up my magic broom, and it did nothing, literally just floated there. So I got to work manually cleaning it, replacing the window for some flags for more comfort, and placing the window in my craft's room. I then decided to learn cider, but unfortunately I needed apples to brew it, so I learnt, then bought a bunch of random seeds, and got to work clearing another area. Soon enough, the goods arrived, and some hours later, I was done with farming for today. So I returned to my tavern and opened up shop. Another person came in wanting to rent the room, and this time I managed to haggle more money than what he'd first offered, which was a first. But I realized I was out of candles to light up the tavern, so I had to close up early. I collected the final junipers and all of my rye on my farm, and cleaning out my rentable room, I decided I would dedicate the day to building up another one. So after planting some seeds and collecting a bunch of resources, I got to work incredibly expensively expanding my business. Each floor tile was 1 gold, 5 planks, and 5 nails, so it took so long to finally get it complete. All I needed now was to put down a door. Apparently, I couldn't do that. Disappointed seeing the massive loss in funds, I opened up the tavern for the night, hoping to get some of the money back. Getting some more brewing going, I harvested even more junipers and was excited to see that my tropical fruit were finally ready for harvest. I grabbed them all, then crafted some things for my rental room before heading up to the mountains. The miners were still there, getting more and more agitated as time went on, and I was curious about what they would do about their friend stuck in ice. I certainly didn't do anything, heading back down to visit Bob before cleaning and improving the rental room, brewing some new tropical fruity lager and opening the tavern. I did some successful haggling and spent the night serving drinks and cleaning tables, making lots of money and gaining reputation. I ended the day playing around in my crafts room. A whole bunch of produce was ready for harvest the next day, so I threw them in my chest and decided to learn sculpturing so I could craft another fermentation tank. But I needed 40 stone blocks and some mortar, so I got to work chopping literally every stone near my tavern and up in the mountains. I got a bunch crafting, then cleaning out my rental room, I realized that I was out of hops. So I opened my mailbox and bought a stupid amount of both hops and yeast for brewing purposes. I also got a fermentation tank crafting. Day 29 was excitingly the first day of the second season. So I grabbed my hops and yeast, put them away, and got back to work chopping rocks near the shop and in the mountains for that precious fermentation tank. Eventually I got enough stone, but I still needed one thing: mortar. So I checked my mailbox and found one machine I didn't have: the mixing tank. I bought it hoping that it would make mortar for an incredibly steep price. So I decided to open the tavern and try and make some of the money back, even successfully haggling 3 times in a row. I was very proud of myself. I made 5 gold that night, closing up shop to place my mixing tank, but realizing that I needed more stone for mortar, I returned to brewing. I had unfortunately forgotten by the next morning. To be fair to me, it had been at least 20 seconds. I got to work harvesting all of my tropical fruit, then remembered about my mortar endeavor, and headed upwards to chop some rocks. I also thought, since it was the second season, Pharaoh must have been starting to melt. He wasn't. But nonetheless, I eventually got the 3 mortar I needed and crafted up my second fermentation tank, doubling my alcohol production. While it was going, I wandered left to see if Buzz had moved in. It had been over a month, and he was still doing the same box. Confused, I bought 12 eggs and coal off Bob to help feed his chicken friend, then returned. But for some reason, I decided to look through some brick fences, which turned out to be a new area, which genuinely looked really great. Only one thing, no one was there. Disappointed, I returned, learnt some new liquor, placed my new tank, and started some brewing. I cleaned out the rental room, then sent off a bottle of rose wine before realizing that my apples were ready for harvest, meaning that I could now brew cider. So I returned to my crafts room and got some processing before heading back to the area I had discovered yesterday. And to my surprise, there was a cart with boxes and cages and a clothesline, but no one around. Confused, I left, talked to Bob, chopped some trees, replanted them, and bought a whole bunch of seeds. I then saw how close I was to reputation level 8, so I opened up the tavern, serving drinks and cleaning tables, and keeping an eye on my brewing out the back. Eventually, I reached my goal, unlocking trends and an extra room. So I tried placing the door, but of course, I didn't have enough mortar. So after doing some brewing and harvesting some produce, I got to work chopping a bunch of stone and coal in the mountains. mountains. I noticed that one of the miners was getting really angry and the other two straight up refused to talk to me. Surely something interesting was incoming. When I had enough resources, I returned to my stone workshop, eventually crafting up the mortar I needed and placing down the door. I spent some time decorating the room, then before opening I headed back down to see if anyone had arrived at the cart. No one had. So I returned, did some cooking and opened up. Checking the trends, I noticed pickles were there, so I learnt the recipe and got some cooking as well. Eventually I got both rooms booked and headed to bed 5 minutes before I would pass out. I cooked up some chickens, then checking the trends I got even more chicken cooking. I then headed down to the hidden area again, but the cart person had packed up and left. Unlike Buzz, who was still unpacking. I got to work chopping a bunch of resources and buying some seeds since my tropical fruits had had their last harvest. I checked in with the miners, collected all of my completed drinks, and cleaned out the rented rooms before opening up shop. I got some pretty good deals with the rooms and overall ended the day with more money and a little reputation. So I kicked out the patrons and cleaned out the rooms before collecting my seeds and planting them out the back. I then returned to the hidden area and the cart person still hadn't returned. So I wandered back to my tavern and decided to open up the shop for the day. And I realize now that I haven't explained in detail what I actually do. So here we go. Served the first customers, looked at a table, checked the calendar, haggled for rented rooms, served customers, wiped down the table, served customers, waited at the bar, calmed down angry man, haggled for rented room, served customer, wiped down tables, served customer, kicked out annoying man, wiped table, served customer, pulled beer, served customer, pulled beer, served customer, pulled beer, headed back, cooked up pickles, collected pickles, cooked up pickles, wiped down tables, served customers, set up candles, served customers, wiped tables, served customers, put up candles, served customers, kicked out annoying customer, called last orders, watched everyone leave, cleaned out tables, then did some brewing and headed to bed. Delivering a jar of pickles the next morning, I leveled up my cleaning and haggling skills, harvested a bunch of apples and got some shish kebabs cooking. And heading up to clean, I was horrified about how disgusting the dude had left the rented room. It took so long to clean and the other guy had made no mess at all. I decided to run down to check the forest area, but the cart wasn't there, so I said hi to Bob, wandered up to the mountains where I chopped resources, returned and collected a bird bath which I had crafted, placing it down, hoping for some birds. And upon re-entering and brewing some cider, I noticed that my cat was sitting on my wall. Hello? What are you doing? What is he doing up there? I opened up the tavern, hit 1 gold via haggling for a room, and closed up past midnight. I bought a whole bunch of carrot seeds, then noticing my crops were done, I got to work harvesting some courgette? I think they misspelled zucchini. Kicking out the renters, I cleaned up their mess, thankfully less than yesterday, planted my carrots that had arrived, and checking the delivery board, I got to work chefing up some dishes. While I waited, I went to see if the cart was back. It wasn't. So I purchased some tea for tea brewing purposes, delivered some chicken, and opened up the tavern, as I was really close to reputation 9. I haggled for rooms and wiped tables until I did level up, unlocking important guests. And checking the calendar, I had one coming in just 3 days, which was certainly exciting. I had 1 goal on day 37, make my tavern perfect for the important customer. First thing I needed was a larger area, so after planting a huge number of barley seeds, I got to work expanding. It took a while because I'm a brainlet and couldn't really figure out how to control it, but eventually I got it done. I also got a whole bunch of resources cooking because I wanted more tables, so I collected iron and coal from the mountains and a bunch of trees below my shop, crafting for literally the entire day. Eventually by 2 AM I hadn't quite finished, but I was getting tired, so I returned home. I stole some decor from my rooms the next day, then brought them downstairs, taking up some empty wall space. Then checking my mailbox, I realized that I didn't need to craft them and I could just buy benches and tables. So I spent a bunch of money on furniture, chopping resources to craft the last one, collecting the goods and got placing. Soon enough, my tavern was looking really great, and seeing as I just needed to wait for my last table, I decided to open the tavern up. There wasn't as many people as there was table space, so I was guessing that as my reputation went up, more people would come, hopefully. By the end of the night, I closed up, crafted my last bench, and placed down the table. I collected my last bench and placed it down the next morning, and happy with my tavern progress, I got to work harvesting all of my barley. Heading back inside and checking my calendar, I noticed the important person had pushed their date back, which was a little strange. Nonetheless, I wandered back down to the forest and was excited to see the cart was back, and today I had a plan. Throughout the day, I chopped a bunch of trees and did some crafting, cleaned out the rented rooms, bought some more decorations, and mined resources in the mines. Eventually night fell, so I headed back down to the forest, and I was finally met by a strange figure named Crowley. We had a little chat, then he showed me his goods, a bunch of bird cages, food, and an egg. So I spent some money on purchasing a starter pack, returned to my tavern, and placed it all down. I learned that distilling was available only after reputation level 12 on day 40, so I wanted to get there. First things first, I needed to build up a third rented room as I now had space. So I got to work chopping a bunch of rocks for mortar and a bunch of trees for planks, then headed to the mountains to mine coal. Returning, I placed all the resources in and got building, but I didn't have enough gold. In fact, I had no money at all, so I headed inside and got some cider cooking and opened up the tavern. It kind of sucked that I didn't have enough customers to fit my tables, but I knew I'd make it eventually. I had so many experience points, so I learned a bunch of crafting recipes before checking my inventory and noticing my egg was looking a little bit different. But the very important guest was coming tomorrow, so I got to work clearing out the rented rooms. My goal for today was to reach reputation level 10 before they came. To, I don't know, impress them or something. So I got to work chopping some resources to craft some more decor and learning a whole bunch of new drinks. I then cooked up a bunch of tea, jam, and tea, which I delivered via the notice board. Eventually, it was time for the tavern to open, and I stayed open until the early next morning, but eventually I didn't end up making my goal. So after doing a little resource collection the next day, I got some wheat grinding and just rechecked if the dude was coming. My very important guest had postponed by 4 days. I genuinely think they'll never come. My new plan of action was to craft up an oven to see what new things it would cook for me. So I headed to the mountains and ridded the area of natural resources, wandered left, gawked at Buzz still unpacking, and said hello to Buzz. I then chopped a stone right in front of Bob and left, crafting up my oven. When it finished, I placed it down and realized it was literally the exact thing that I already had. Bird. So I named it. Nobler. Serving drinks for the night, I finally got reputation level 10, unlocking the cellar. I checked on my bird the next day, who was just chilling in the cage. I then decided to check out my newly unlocked cellar, which was really cool. Putting some Bock into the aging barrel, I was excited to see what I could sell it for. I then headed upstairs and kicked out the renters that for some reason didn't like that. I nonetheless cleaned up, harvested a bunch of citrus, and crafted up a bunch of fences. While I waited, I chopped down a bunch of trees below my tavern before returning and lining my farm with fence, so the passers-by couldn't do any thieving. When I was happy with my work, I saw that Cheese needed reputation level 11 to learn, and I was only 1 level off, so I opened the tavern for the night, getting pretty good at this haggling thing. I was heading down to check if Crowley was around when I noticed a turkey just walking around. I thought that I could probably capture it by using one of the crow's contraptions. I then helped to pay Bob's rent by buying eggs and a stone, then decided to actually build my third room as I had easily enough money at this point, or so I thought, as when I was done, I had nothing left in my pocket. So I cleaned out the rooms and opened up shop, failing some easy haggling and doing a bunch of cooking in between. I ended the day with some solid profits. I was feeling bad for my bird that was just living in a cage, so today's goal was to get a bird stand for my bird to stand on. I also remembered the VIP was coming tomorrow, so I checked my calendar and apparently they weren't. I got to work chopping some coal, then headed over to the forest where I was happy to see Crowley had safely returned. So I spent the day hitting rocks and crafting stone path, then placing it down to improve the scenery around my farm. Seeing as it wasn't night yet, I opened up the tavern, forgot that I hadn't cleaned the room, and returned as the customers were getting a little bit annoyed. I nonetheless survived the night, closed up and wandered down, and there he was, Crowley himself. I bought an expensive stand, but couldn't seem to place it anywhere. I headed down to the cellar and was surprised to see my Bock was done, and now worth more than 1 gold. So I threw it on tap and saw that I could actually place the stand in my tavern. So I set my little parrot up, brought a rug for him, and got to work for the day, as I wanted to increase my farm size and clean up the general area. I began by trimming the edges, then began digging up the grass in the middle, eventually finishing. I quickly harvested a bunch of fruits, then pulled out my hoe, beginning to till all of the exposed soil. I got mostly done by nightfall. I threw some cider in the aging barrel the next morning, then returned to the fields to fix up the end. I completed the path and trimmed up the top before collecting the seeds that I had purchased and got planting. There was an awful lot of them, but I still ran out, deciding to buy some fruits instead. I then decorated my tavern a little more and fed my parrot. I also added a scarecrow in the middle of the field, although I'm certain crows don't exist in this game. I added some stone path going in both directions, planted all the mango seeds that I had bought, and wandered down to see if Crowley was around. He wasn't, so I brewed for the rest of the night. I collected some red wine and placed it in my aging barrel, then placing a couple more decorations in my tavern. I was really getting happy with how it was looking. I got to work cleaning the rented rooms and began cooking a whole bunch of food in the crafts room, because today was the day my VIP customer was finally showing up. I ordered a bunch of meat and caught my parrot speaking English before deciding to open up shop. My VIP customer walked in looking a little musty, but I was sure to keep everything running real smooth, except when my parrot told someone that they were really ugly. Nobula is going back into the cage. But the day went really well and I gained a stupid amount of reputation, almost making it to level 11. I bought a heap of wheat seeds the next morning, then got to work cooking. When the seeds arrived, I planted as much as would fit and wandered downwards to check if Crowley was there, as I was running low on crackers. He unfortunately wasn't, so I questioned Buzz's motives. It's been almost 50 days and he still hasn't packed a single box. I returned to my tavern where I checked on my cellar, cleaned the rented rooms, and out of curiosity, decided to see how Pharaoh was going. He was still stuck in ice. I was really close to reputation 11, so I opened up my shop and got it within a couple of hours, unlocking cheese making and aging. Very exciting. I had a huge crop of tomatoes, hops, and pumpkins the next morning, which took ages to harvest. I really think I bought a couple too many seeds, but now it was time to make some cheese. So I bought a bunch of possible cheese ingredients, then looked through all of my crafting stations looking for anything that could possibly make cheese. As a last-ditch effort, I checked the mailbox and there it was, the cheesery. I bought one and some aging racks, cleaned the rented rooms while they delivered, then grabbed them excitedly. I placed it down and got making some unaged brie before heading down to the cellar where I placed down the racks. And seeing how much I had lost from today's endeavors, I opened up the tavern and served food until nightfall. I had an ultimate plan the next day. I remembered how my parrot had lost me reputation by calling someone ugly, but if I could get a parrot at every table saying nice things, I could become hugely reputable. So I got to work harvesting a bunch of wheat, opened the tavern and cleaned the rented rooms. And I kept the tavern open for the entire day as I needed a bunch of money for a bunch of parrot eggs. On top of this, Crowley was coming tomorrow and an important guest. I wondered who it would be. I had a bunch of money the next morning and the important guest had postponed, but Crowley still was coming today, so I reorganized my tavern a little to fit one parrot between two tables, one next to the bar and one down to the left. When everything was ready, I got some cheese aging and opened up the store, trying to get a little money before I spent everything on eggs. And so, serving drinks, cleaning tables and cooking dishes, I made an extra 8 gold to my name. When night fell, I closed up shop and headed down to Buzz's home since I momentarily forgot what I was doing. But I remembered and returned to Crowley. I spent literally all of my money on 3 parrot eggs, 3 parrot stands and 9 crackers. I placed them down in my tavern. I got some cheese aging and got to work harvesting a whole bunch of tomatoes, mangoes and oranges. I then purchased a bunch of fruit tree seeds, cleaned out the rented rooms, made some pie and opened up shop. I needed as much money as I could possibly get within the next week until Crowley visited again, as I needed 2 more bird stands as well as 2 more eggs. So I ran my tavern for the entire day, getting almost 10 gold in my pocket. I had a whole lot of empty farm space on day 54, so after aging some cheese in the cellar, I got to work planting a bunch of saplings. Eventually I ran out of space, so I ran back to the mailbox where I bought a whole bunch of furniture for my 3rd rentable room, which was just sitting there useless. While I waited for the goods to arrive, I cleaned out the other rooms, crafted up nails for future distillers, and chopped rocks in the mountains. When my things came, I picked them up and furnished the 3rd room. Realizing I had spent a lot of money so far today, I opened up the tavern and made a bunch of money off the rented rooms, and closed up with 11 gold. Surely I could get a lot of parrots. I headed outside and noticed that I hadn't chopped trees in a while, and there was a damn lot of them around. So I got to work felling as many as I could to stock up on some wood. I broke basically everyone, leaving a couple of trees for spreading purposes. And after replanting a bunch using saplings, I chopped every rock on my tavern area. Checking the orders board, I accepted 2 of them, cooked them both up in my kitchen and sent them off, allowing me to upgrade my haggling again. But night was falling and I wanted to make some cash, so I quickly cleaned all 3 rented rooms and opened up shop until they were all taken, making a fast 5 gold. It was the last day of the season and the important guest was coming today, so I got cooking and then exited my tavern to buy some carpets for my parrots, harvesting both my mango and my orange trees. I was then returning when my eggs hatched into parrots, which I named Grug, Griggle and Grunter. So I tried to place them down, but disaster struck. I was only allowed 1 parrot per room. What a horrendous waste of money. So So to get it back, I cleaned out the rented rooms and opened up shop. I served the important guest, then cooked up some expensive food and manned my bar for the entire night. Since the VIP was here today, I got so much more reputation per customer, allowing me to reach level 12, unlocking distilling, hopefully meaning more future profits. Day 57 was the first day of the third season, and nothing had changed. First of all, I noticed my cat was bullying my parrot Grunter, so I locked it in a room with its bed and bowl. I then unlocked distilling on the tech tree, completing the whole thing. And wanting to make some money, I got to work crafting up some distilleries. While I waited, I chopped a bunch of resources, cleaned out the rented rooms, and since I'd leveled up my reputation, I built up another room below. But I didn't have enough mortar for a door, so I got some crafting, delivered some goods at the board, and noticed that my cat had escaped. I ordered a bunch of yeast to make future alcohol, collected my second distillery, and placed them both upstairs. After planting a bunch of hops, I collected my mortar, went into construction mode, but I didn't have enough money. Turns out I didn't have enough mortar either, so I got to work chopping a bunch of resources until my things had come. So I ran into the craft room and got some molasses fermenting. At this point, I just wanted money for my rented room and furniture, so I opened up shop, hit some crazy haggling, and by the time I closed, I had made 10 gold. With this money, I bought a bunch of decorations and furniture, then added in the door to make my fourth rented room. I then entered my craft room and tried to craft some grain ferment, but I needed wort, so I bought some hops, and while I waited for it all to come, I got to work on my first batch of rum. I ended the day setting up a little room, watching my cat bully my parrot, and placing the rum in an aging keg. I had an idea on day 59. I wanted to make one luxury suite, a massive room filled to the brim with decor that would be worth a bunch of gold per night. But I needed a bunch of gold to build it, so I got to work making some rum, clearing out the rooms, did some cooking, and opened up shop. My aim for today was to make 10 gold, and after some successful haggling, serving a bunch of food, noticing I had a VIP, and noticing my parrot was beginning to say nice things to the customers, I eventually made my 10 gold and closed up shop. So after playing around in my crafts room for a little, I cleaned out the rented rooms and headed outside, where I found a whole bunch of ripe produce. I harvested it all, then decided to start my plan and expanded the room a little to the left, using all of my money. I then realized that I need more nails, so I got to work chopping resources before grabbing a little aged rum and opening up shop. It was going well, my parrot was talking about roasted cat, and I was failing haggling. But overall, thanks to my rum costing 10 silver per bottle, I was able to reach my goal of 10 gold. I closed up my tavern and cleaned the place before cooking up some brandy and some rum and throwing it in the aging barrel. I got crafting some more alcohol the next morning, then crafting some nails and chopping some more iron ore, I headed up to the mountains. There, I took all of the natural resources, then returned to clean out the rented rooms. I then headed over to my work table where I expanded the room a little more to the left. I moved some windows and flags to up the comfort, tried to stop my cat eating my parrot, and opened up my tavern. And the first customer started talking to no one. But eventually, the culmination of all the served food and some crazy haggling of more than 1 gold and 20 silver for a room, I got to my target 8 gold. I made some more brandy, some shish kebabs, and cleaned out all the rooms, before it was of course time to expand the luxury suite. I opened the tavern, and at this point I needed 8 gold for the final expansion tomorrow, plus another 4 gold to spend on decorating the place. And after getting some pretty good room prices and selling some expensive cheese platters, I was in the gold. I cleaned up the tables, then headed outside where I harvested a whole bunch of fruit again. Then heading to my workbench, I tried to expand the room, but it was occupied. So I kicked them out, cleaned all 4 rooms, and finally completed the last expansion. I then spent all of my remaining funds on a bunch of decorations, then waited for them to arrive. While I waited, I decided to first chop some resources near my tavern, then headed down to see Buzz, as I hadn't in some time. It had been 3 months, and he was still unpacking. I wandered further down and bought some eggs from Bob before returning to my tavern, collecting the things and decorating my luxury suite. But there was a huge amount of still bare area, so I made some alcohol and decided to deal with it tomorrow. But I forgot, and instead threw some things into my aging barrels and opened up the tavern. I then headed outside to neglect the customers and got some nails crafting, begrudgingly returning to work and serving customers for the day. I almost got some guy paying a dumb amount for the luxury suite, but I missed the haggle. I'm sure after it's decorated, it'll be worth a whole lot more. I did some cooking out the back, and eventually my profits for the day passed 15 gold, so I closed up shop and cleaned up. I was now quite rich, so I spent a dumb amount of money on random decor, then while I waited for it to arrive, chopped a bunch of trees down around my tavern. I began replanting the oak trees in a line from the southern exit, hopefully starting what would become something cool. But when the things arrived, I kicked everyone out of their rooms and got cleaning. Then, collecting a large table I had crafted and placing it in a room, I got placing all the little items. When I'd finished, I still wanted a lot more decor and another large table, so I bought a bunch of stuff and got crafting another table. While I waited, I checked if Crowley was there, which he wasn't, then filled out the second table, finishing the room for the time being. So I opened up the tavern and sold all 4 rooms as quickly as possible. Crowley was coming today and there was a couple of things that I needed to do with him. But first, I picked up some aged alcohol and picked a bunch of cherries and lemons before cleaning out the rented rooms and opening up the tavern. I unfortunately forgot to clean a single table before the guy paid, and I wasn't able to clean it. There goes my reputation. Nonetheless, I made a bunch of money that day, and by nightfall I closed up and wandered downwards. First, I wanted to show Crowley the normal chicken egg because he likes eggs, but I couldn't. But he did complain about the vision in his masks resulting in my toucan, which wasn't a parrot. I then learned that I needed to feed it after it said a good thing, so I bought 50 crackers ready to make my toucan an angel. I was excited for this, so I quickly made some alcohol, chopped some resources, and cleaned out the rented rooms before opening up my tavern and waiting for my toucan to say something. As soon as it did, I fed it a cracker, gaining 5 niceness. I managed to do it twice that day, and after getting a bunch of money and reputation overall, I closed up shop as I didn't have any candles and night was falling. As everyone left, I headed out to purchase a bunch of aging barrels, collected resources, and used them to increase the size of my craft room. There, I placed down my 2 distillers and got another one crafting. I was sure this production plan was going to make me rich. But I hear you wondering, why did I want to be rich? For one reason only, the business owner achievement on Steam. Earn 800 gold coins. I needed it. I first placed my new aging kegs in my cellar, filled them with some drinks, then got to work chopping all the coal in the area, as I would need to fuel my 4 distilleries. When I finished, I grabbed the other machine that I had crafted and placed them all down in my craft room, fueling them up and getting brewing. Another big way to earn was haggling and sell prices, so I cooked up some food for the deliveries to upgrade my player stats. I then bought a bunch of candles and cleaned out the rented rooms before collecting my drinks and getting them aging. I grabbed a bunch of drinks the next morning, then after crafting up some more buckets outside, I returned to my cellar to age them. Unfortunately, you can't age gin, vodka, or fruit liquor, so I threw them on the menu and got some whiskey cooking. I then bought some corn seeds for another achievement, praise corn, and opened up my tavern. I did this because I could now build more space for the drinking area as well as a new rented room. But this would be expensive, so I manned my bar until nightfall, gaining a solid 20 gold by the time I closed up. I had 4 distilleries now, but only 2 fermentation tanks. This meant my production was slowing drastically and I needed to improve. So I headed up to the mountains and got to work chopping a bunch of rocks as I need a huge amount of resources to craft up 2 tanks. I got some things crafting before realizing I could just order 2 for not even that much, so I did. I then headed upstairs to clean out the rented rooms, planting my corn when it arrived. I also placed down my 2 new tanks and got a whole bunch of produce producing. Realizing that I had actually spent quite a lot on the fermenters, I opened up my tavern, reaching a solid 25 gold by the time I locked up. I cooked up a bunch of rum before heading off to bed. Everything was ready the next morning, so I collected a bunch of aged, expensive alcohol and put them on the menu. I then cleaned out the rented rooms and opened up my tavern. My goal for today was to reach 40 gold in my pocket, as building a new room and expanding my tavern drinking area as much as possible was going to be expensive. But things went relatively well. I kept training my toucan to slowly become smarter and better for the business, and by the time I closed, I had made 41 gold. I brewed up some drinks and played around in my cellar for the night. Making some whiskey the next morning, I headed outside to gather my corn, getting me the praise corn achievement. I then decided to use my 41 gold on expanding the tavern. First, I gathered a bunch of coal and other resources before making some planks and nails, which I used to expand by a bunch of tiles. I also used these stone blocks to make my craft room floor brick, but I ran out, so I chopped a bunch of stones, returned, and filled it out. I then rearranged the seating plan, purchasing a bunch of tables and getting some crafting. While I waited, I pickaxed copper and chopped a bunch of trees before grabbing everything and setting up the tavern. I needed 3 more large benches to complete the room, so I headed out, got some nails crafting, and got to work chopping up resources. When they were done crafting, I grabbed them and put them down before deciding that I wanted at least 2 coasters per table, plus a candle holder. So I got some crafting, but it was way too slow, so I crafted up another anvil to speed up the process. While I waited, I wandered to the mountains where I hit rocks and said hi to Pharaoh, placing down my new anvil and making some holders. I also ordered my coasters in the mailbox. I awaited their arrival by chopping trees again and continuing my line of oak trees upwards. Eventually they arrived, so I spent the night setting everything out. I accidentally fed my bird while trying to check my calendar under, so I moved it away. Then I decided to make today basically to pretty up the farm above my tavern. So I got to work chopping it into portions that would house different foods, grabbed some fences and tried to place them. But can I stress how much work these need? They don't snap when turning corners, they can't be placed on anything other than grass, and after increasing the grass tile to 2 tiles, they still didn't fit. Genuinely flabbergasted, I tried to place them on the bottom instead, but I need to take my farm back 2 entire tiles when there was already 1 tile between the farm and the path. I really don't think fences are worth it. I placed some path down at the exit and put some fences around the place. Then, cleaning the rented rooms, I opened the tavern for the night. I didn't miss a single haggle the entire time, making a bunch of money and earning the good host achievement. I realized it was late, closed up, but unfortunately passed out. Luckily for me, nothing negative happened, so I aged some cheese and got to work gathering all kinds of items. This was because I now had a bunch of empty space in my tavern, and I wanted to craft some decor. I crafted some hinges for a large window and got some pebbles for some stone path, then decided that I should spend some money and bought a bunch of decorative items. I then crafted up the big window, and while I was waiting, I decided to finish cleaning up the pathway down to buzzers. Unfortunately, trees hate being planted within a tile of literally anything, so there'll be a bigger gap thanks to these rocks. What's even weirder is I can just place pathway down after the tree is planted, and it will still grow. A bit confused, I planted some mango and raspberry seeds. I placed all of my new furniture on day 76, then aging some drinks, I headed down to my road to add some more fence behind the trees. I was kind of sad that you couldn't see my work at all, but there was nothing I could do about it. I also wanted some more carpets, so I ordered some and cleaned out the rented rooms before deciding to head down while waiting for the carpets to arrive. Buzz, unbelievably, stupendously, unimaginably, was still moving in, and Bob had the exact same stock, but no matter because my carpets had arrived. I placed them down and opened up the tavern, serving drinks and cleaning tables until late at night. I once again witnessed my cat trying to eat my toucan, and in the process of trying to make it stop, I petted it twice and fed my toucan a cracker. I genuinely wish there was a way to stop it, but I got to work cleaning out the rented rooms early in the morning as I was so close to Reputation 14. So I opened the tavern and cooked up some honey fish, which I sent off as a delivery. I somehow managed to miss the very first haggle, but overall the day was a success, closing up with over 33 gold in my pocket. I had broken the game. When I tried to age some drinks, they simply didn't show up in my inventory. I literally had no idea what I did. Nonetheless, I quickly cleaned out all the rooms and opened straight up, because of course there was still the 800 gold achievement, and the do you have a reservation achievement, which required a much higher reputation as what I currently had. So I just served drinks and wiped down my excessive amount of tables for the day, ending with a little bit of reputation and a whole lot of money. On top of this, my bird was slowly getting better and better. I began the day by cooking up some parsley porridge for a billboard quest, cooking up some drinks, and cleaning out the rented rooms before opening up the tavern. There was still a massive grind ahead of me if I wanted to get these achievements. I was even happy to see when a VIP customer walked inside, giving me a huge reputation boost. I literally just manned my bar for the entire day, on the grind day and night. I guess I simply have the grind set. I got just past halfway to reputation 15 by the time I decided to close, as well as getting a solid 75 gold in the bag. And I was just cleaning the tables, ready to head to bed, when I passed out. I worked out that I had a maximum capacity of 44 people, so if I wanted the reservation achievement, I would need reputation level 17. So I got to work harvesting my raspberries and cooking up some dishes. After cleaning out the rented rooms, I made a bunch more drinks, and since my distilleries were running low on fuel, I spent some time chopping rocks near my tavern and up in the mountains. When I returned, it was already getting late, so I opened up and served my customers for the rest of the day. I unfortunately forgot to look at the clock again and passed out while cleaning up. Collecting a whole bunch of expensive drinks in my cellar, I harvested a bunch of mangoes outside and planted some cherries, lemons, and limes. I was just heading upwards to gather coal when I tried hitting the turkey with my mop, and it disappeared into a bunch of smoke, dropping me a raw turkey. I decided to head down and craft up some fence. Bought the little pathway further up towards my tavern, unfortunately running out at the very bottom of the right side. I wanted to open my tavern that night, so I quickly cleaned out the rooms, but after ordering a bunch of cheese ingredients, I thought it was probably too late. So I wanted to keep my tavern open for most of day 82. I first got a bunch of drinks from my barrels, cooked up some kebabs, and since my rooms are already clean, I just opened up. And I literally just cooked, served, and cleaned for the next 25 minutes. Unfortunately, no VIP customer ever walked in, but nonetheless, I got a decent amount of reputation and managed to reach an insane 110 gold in my pocket by the time I closed up. Quickly quickly cleaning the tables, I headed up to cook some fondue and passed out on my way to bed. My sleep schedule needed some work, but my menu did as well, so I ordered a bunch of distilling yeast and collected 4 kegs of aged beer, which since I needed the barrels back, I emptied and threw onto the menu. I then cooked up 4 more kegs of the good stuff and headed up to the mountains, where I took all of the coal. I really had so many machines at this point that it was a chore just keeping them running. When I returned, I decided to finish the pathway down south, so after collecting some fence and cleaning up the bottom, I chopped a bunch of trees for saplings and got planting them in a line. This took a while since I needed to take down all of the path and all of the fence as well, just to plant them. I'm sure it'll be worth when it's complete. 'Twas the 28th, the day that an important visitor was coming, so I grabbed some things from my cellar and did some cooking, quickly cleaned out the rented rooms and opened up shop. My only goal was to get as much reputation as possible, so I could get closer to that reputation level 17. I manned the bar for a while until eventually I leveled up, but surprisingly, my tavern capacity didn't increase at all, until I had a thought. Just maybe, including my satisfaction, I could already house 50 people. I just wasn't serving them fast enough, but whatever I did, I couldn't keep the house in a livable level of cleanliness while serving this many customers. But I kept trying until late at night when I gave up with 130 gold in the bank. I unfortunately passed out making alcohol. I collected some aged beverages, then excitedly headed outside as today was the first, but nothing had changed. I had wrongly thought that seasons worked the same as in Stardew and it would be snowing, which it certainly wasn't. Nonetheless, I harvested up some mangoes, then made some barley before deciding it was time to build up 2 more rentable rooms in my tavern. So I collected a bunch of planks and nails, then built one to the left. But I wasn't allowed to continue left, so I started one on the bottom right, but ran out of planks. So while I waited for more to craft, I bought a bunch of furniture for these rooms and chopped stone. Eventually, I was able to complete both rooms, but I didn't have enough mortar for even one door. My plan for today was simple: finish my rentable rooms and open the tavern. But I needed stone for mortar, so I collected a bunch in the mountains before returning and placing down both doors. I then collected the items I had bought, headed upstairs, and got decorating. I realized though that I had forgotten to buy lanterns, so I wandered over to the mailbox and ordered some, along with some armor. While I waited, I finished decorating the other room as well, and decided that as soon as they arrived, I would open up. So I waited, and waited. Yeah, they never came. So I resorted to just ordering them again the next morning. Then I got to work harvesting a bunch of cherries, lemons, and limes. Using these, I got a bunch of fruity, sweet brandy cooking, and after collecting my lanterns, I set them up in each room, and decided to hire a bartender. This was because I would surely get enough people inside if they were served instantly. All I did the entire time my tavern was open was haggle for rented rooms and clean up tables. Even with the bartender there, I still couldn't reach the 50 people goal. I had plenty of space, and I thought I wasn't stopped by any game mechanics. So I closed up, fired the bartender, and watched everyone filter out. I fell asleep in my crafts room. There were 6 entire rooms to clean the next day. I was considering getting a maid lady, but just did the work anyway. I then got a bunch of brandy cooking and for some reason decided to chop a bunch of things around my area. But night was already falling as I had woken up late, so I opened up the tavern and hired another bartender. Business went smoothly throughout the day, slowly gaining more reputation and money. But one thing was off. The VIP customer that was supposed to come today refused to show up for the 2nd time in a row. I could have so much reputation at this point if my important customers weren't so tardy. After firing the bartender again, I stupidly fell asleep in my cellar. But I nonetheless woke up early the next morning to collect a bunch of mangoes, then decided to see if I could make my tavern fully automatic. So I hired both a bartender and a wiper boy, cleaned out all of my rented rooms, and opened up shop. I realized immediately that I would still unfortunately have to haggle with renters, calm down annoyed customers, and kick out annoying ones. But still, I was relatively free to do whatever I wanted in the time when my tavern was open. My main goal was to deliver everything on the board, so I cooked up some porridge, wine, and pale ale, did some haggling, and got some fresh air. Eventually, I fired both employees, closed up shop, and forgot to deliver the drinks. I emptied my kegs, then bought them up as I needed to brew some beer. I then headed down into my cellar and collected some drinks, before realizing I could still deliver my wine and ale, so I did collecting a bunch of experience. I then got some of today's deliveries cooking and collected some coal before begrudgingly cleaning the rooms and once again hiring a bartender. I spent the night haggling for profits, delivering food, and forgetting to clean the tables. I ended the day with a solid 150 gold, almost hiring the bartender to stay the night. I woke up real late the next morning, so I had to do my things very quickly. First, I harvested a bunch of produce outside and bought some seeds to replenish my farm before getting some jam cooking and collecting my aged drinks. I then moved all of the upstairs goods into the craft room downstairs, emptied some kegs so I could brew some beer, hired a bartender, and headed up to clean out the rented rooms. It was going relatively well until I realized I didn't have any wood for the fireplace, and if the place was too cold, I would lose a bunch of reputation. I decided decide to close up a little early. Having enough money at this point to fully sustain 2 employees basically full-time and still make money was a very good feeling. I could just head outside and spend an hour planting a bunch of seeds and everything would still be running smoothly. The only problem was I was running out of kegs. This was because every time I would ship a barrel of alcohol off, I wouldn't get the barrel back. So I got to work chopping a bunch of trees to craft some. I was eventually able to ship off my last 2 barrels, but it was no matter, as I got straight back to work chopping iron. Later that day, I also reached reputation level 16, increasing my capacity by 2. Checking my calendar, I saw a VIP customer was coming tomorrow, so I closed up early to save my goods for that day. I was debating on day 93 whether delivering my beers and gaining experience was worth the keg that came in, and after chopping some iron, I decided that it probably wasn't. I opened up the tavern, and after hiring my staff, I was able to spend the day happily delivering beers, after forgetting that I didn't want to do it anymore. I crafted some barrels and mined up some resources before returning and haggling for some rooms, and finally finishing the path down south. I was annoyed that it could really never be complete thanks to these rocks, but I thought it looked decent anyways. I genuinely enjoyed basking in my hard work, watching my employees do the hard stuff as I just watched. Eventually, I fired both of them and passed out on my way to bed. I continued on my goal of reaching the 800 gold mark the next morning. I didn't know if I could make it, but I would try my best. I delivered some wine and chopped a rock before harvesting some strawberries and some raspberries and opening up the tavern as soon my employees would be arriving. I did a little cooking, then re-exited where I grabbed the last of my fruits before returning and doing some haggling. My bird at this point had been fully trained for some time now, but annoyingly was still saying some things that lost me reputation. I delivered some citrus pork that night and closed up at the dead of night, unfortunately forgetting to take my employees off payroll. So when I headed into my tavern the next morning, in they walked. Wasting no time, I opened up shop, then headed outside where I harvested a bunch of pumpkins. While business was in full swing, I completely left and spent some time chopping resources in the mountains, before returning and getting to work cooking and brewing, as having the tavern open so much of the time was taking a toll on the dishes I had available. I took a quick break to plant a bunch of lime, lemon, and cherry seeds in my backyard, and basically managed my store for the rest of the day. Soon enough, it was getting real late, so I closed up and headed outside to gather my iron bars, but I didn't check the time and fell asleep. But it was worth it, as I got the insomnia achievement. I didn't really do anything the next day, just repeated cooking some food and putting it on the menu. Thanks to my employees, I really didn't have to do anything, and I was slowly but surely creeping closer to 800 gold. I spent some time in the mountains and buying more decorations, putting up a new painting that I thought looked really nice. Some more decorations had arrived, so I placed them as well and leveled up to reputation 17. According to the calendar, a VIP customer was coming today, so I hoped for a bunch of happy customers. But unfortunately, I realized that I couldn't make any cheese because I had run out of milk. So I ordered a bunch of it, and checking my stats, I was just 23 gold off my ultimate goal. I placed a couple more plants around my tavern, then opened up again, and after just a little bit of aimlessly walking around, I was down in my cellar when I got the business owner achievement. But unfortunately at this point, I realized I was using game capture on OBS, so only I could see the achievements. If you're lucky, I'll edit them in. I only had one achievement left at this point, have 50 people inside my tavern at the same time, and I had a strategy. I would open my tavern with no employees and just wait for it to fill up without letting anyone leave. When people stopped entering, I realized the satisfaction bonus for occupation was already added into the maximum, so I just need to get a higher reputation, which I tried my best to do by leaving the tavern open for the night. So I had 2 days to increase my maximum occupation by 3. I opened immediately and got cooking before deciding that a good way to get a couple hundred free reputation was another rented room, so I gathered some resources, then built 2 up, realized that I was only allowed 1, and decorated it. I then reopened for the night, sadly not making all that much progress towards the prestigious reputation level 18. And it was finally the final day, but that didn't matter as I needed reputation 18. I didn't do much today, just watched my tavern, ordered a bunch of decorations, did some haggling, decorated the upstairs hallway for extra customer satisfaction, and made sure to kick out any rowdy people. But sadly by nightfall, it had become evident that I wasn't going to be able to reach my goal. But this is my video, and I really want this achievement. I never left my tavern except for ordering ingredients until I got the achievement. After asking the Discord how on earth I would get my satisfaction high enough for extra space, I got to work getting the comfort up, making the menu more diverse and kicking out rowdy customers as soon as they yelled out. And eventually on day 107, as I was about to give up, I got the achievement. Yes! Yes! I got the achievement! Oh my god. It's been so... I'm losing my mind.
Oh, I'm so happy.
And just like that, I had 100%ed Traveler's Rest. Wow, what a talent I am. But swiftly moving on. Welcome to Cornucopia, the 2.5D farming and life sim where you explore a huge world, cultivate crops and grow animals while forging relationships, attending festivals, exploring deeper into the mines and defeating bosses. There's so much to do, so please, like, subscribe and enjoy the video. I was discovered on day 1 in a big ice block. I was quickly resuscitated and brought to a town where I could live, learning the controls by getting rid of roadblocks using the tools I'd been given and some explosives as well. It was nearing evening by the time we arrived at the abandoned farm, which was now apparently my property. But not yet ready to get to work, I played around with the camera, explored the old barn, and used all of my energy to clear a small corner of the farm. When I was happy enough, I built a furnace and filled it with stone, and anticipating what it could possibly produce, I headed inside my house. It was quaint, with a small kitchen and a bedroom, easily traversable thanks to the walls.
Yo!
I decided it was time to explore the world I would be living in, but after just hitting a rock, a strange pop-up appeared.
Congratulations, per usual height.
I chose vibrant skin.
Bro, I
Remembering that this is in fact a farming game, I hoed a piece of land and planted my first seed, watered, and left to play with my dog Munter, who actually chased the ball. This is the greatest game ever. But quickly feeding him and building up a sawmill, I got my first taste of a major game mechanic, scratch cards. Getting these from basically anything, you scratch them and win prizes. And after fixing my shipping bin, placing a compost bin, and leaving the farm, I met Winter, the pink-haired warrior man. He kindly handed me some cards to unlock recipes for cooking, and after completing them, I got a goddess bowl and some chives, s'mores and a cookie, and finally chicken curry and some salt. Very nice, but cooking wasn't my goal. It was to explore the world, so heading downwards, I arrived at the beach, where I 1v1'd a crab, took a quick dip, and watched a strange cutscene of some capo lads talking about defeating a giant spider to reach them. Not at all interested, I headed back up, gorged my pickaxe into someone's knee, and was asked to find some lost mail. Not really knowing where to start, I wandered down the strip of shops, passed the way up to the plaza, talked to a cat, and made my way to a vineyard. Absolutely lost by this point. I just ran for ages through the yard, and with no signs of it ending, I headed home. Decorating a little, I headed outside to see it was raining. I hoed a little space, but realized I didn't have any seeds, and searching the UI for a chest to craft, I stumbled across the NPC menu.
single. Oh, okay.
Throwing my things in the fridge, I luckily got some mail from the seed shop owner giving me some seeds. So I planted them, and after a quick exploration of my farm where I found a well, an old greenhouse, and the end of my land, I headed into town. Stopping on a small pier, I decided to try some fishing, but was perplexed when this thing popped up, where you drop floaters to land on the things you want. Certainly, baffled, I checked out a cake shop of sorts, and headed to the plaza where I met Brianna, said hi, and continued on my way. There was a fancy restaurant and a church with an old lady, as well as the lost package which I returned, was asked to deliver it to a man named Richard. I didn't have the time for that though, so I returned to the strip and stumbled across the general store. Pretty cool. And eventually arrived at the seed store. It was closed. A little annoyed, I fished, watched some television in a stranger's house, and returned to the farm. Determined to get some seeds planted today, I first headed into town to find Richard, who would hopefully reward me with some funds in return for the package. He didn't, so I instead headed into a building named the Auction House, and sitting there for a while, a chicken came on sale. A bunch of people joined, and feeling intimidated, I left. This was when I found someone named Naomi, hurt on the bridge. She told me to meet her at night in the granary. Very interesting. In anticipation, I entered the seed shop to see Stanley had been rummaging through the mail of the home's inhabitants. Apparently, the letter had contained a mysterious seed, but deciding it wasn't my problem, I bought some seeds and promptly left. Planting them at home and receiving a coffee machine from the mailman, I placed it inside. At this point, it was nearing nighttime, so I entered the town, talked to some kind of horse lad, and climbed up to the second story of the granary. There, I was given permanent head damage and transported into a hidden lair. I am standing next to a psycho. She said that apparently I'd been stuck for 100 years, and if I wanted to defeat the giant spider, I would need to befriend a bunch of people to get some gem fruits. Believe me, I took the very first opportunity to leave and went straight to bed. This was because day 5 was an important one. I first watered all the crops, chose a temporary new hairstyle as a prize for my tool upgrading, and entered the chicken coop. There, I met the truck guy and his wife, who were nice enough to give me a chick. I fed it, named it Knob, and watched as it phased out of existence. She thankfully recovered, and after giving some pets, I headed into town. You see, today was the first festival of the year, so after doing some community service and receiving another prize, I entered the town, looking like an absolute goblin. Thankfully, all these cosmetics only lasted a day, and I got to work chatting with everyone. There are truly a plethora of villagers in this game, but my highlights were the AI nurse lady, this devious-looking baker, hot buff man, and single mother of 3. Exploring a little, I found an ice cream shop, fish market, and a staircase I couldn't get up. At that moment, it was time to conclude the festival. Unfortunately, Rufus miscalculated something, and the basket thing, whatever it was, was blown to pieces. Returning home, I threw all of my belongings in the storage shed, basically a huge chest, and after filling my watering can and meeting with a chef, I spent the night clearing more space for farming. I watered my plants the next morning and got a treasure chest for a prize, selling some produce and checking on Nob. Today, I decided that we would hang out, so getting her to follow, we entered the town. I was headed to the library to investigate this strange seed when, on the way there, I ran into single mother of 3. Her name was Anastasia and was actually married to the goofy mailman. Thankfully, Stanley's unfortunate behavior was none of my business, and having a quick visit to the fancy diner and playing some piano, I ran into Vincent outside the library. Apparently, he was gathering the confidence to ask out the librarian. Very exciting. Giving some advice and heading inside, I was told to visit the greenhouse above the seed shop to grow the mysterious plant. I didn't care though. Vincent was about to pop off. He approached slowly, and after some stuttering, he managed to reveal his feelings. Nervous and shocked, Brianna replied, "Can we just be friends?" Oh man. Vincent left, absolutely heartbroken, and I too had given up on them. But something miraculous happened. As I was leaving, I caught her in the act, reading up on books about attracting lads, even trying the skills out on Muscle Boy. What could this possibly mean? Wanting answers, I wandered back into town, meeting Vincent again in the square. I assured him that he still had a chance, and then wanting to continue my exploration of the town, I entered the game hall. This place was huge. I began by exploring a crane mechanism, spending all but 50 of my funds on this annoying strength meter, leaving nothing for the other games. Heading upstairs, there was a cow eating game, crane game, basketball, and an active volcano, and a food stand. Nearby, there was also a slot machine, where I spent 30 out of my remaining 50 gold, then making the intelligent financial decision and leaving. It was raining the next morning, so after petting Nob the chicken, I decided on a whim to head through the town and just keep walking east until I ran into something. It was certainly a long journey, but a worthwhile one when I eventually arrived at the wizard's tower. Carefully entering, it was empty, other than a cat who could talk. The upstairs area was also peopleless. Certainly not the shadow wizard money gang that I was expecting. Anticipating meeting the wizard soon, I left and was heading home when I had a tumble straight into the dangerously deep waters. I had no idea how to leave, tactfully staying near water columns to regenerate oxygen. I navigated my way to the closest way out and managed to finally escape. Relieved, I began my journey home, slipped off a cliff, backtracked, and walked right back inside. I eventually made my escape again and arrived back in town, where I decided it was about time for me to venture into the mines. I was handed a torch outside and entered carefully, making sure to stay far from the slimes until I couldn't find the way forward and slaughtered them all. Promptly leaving, I returned to the farm where I harvested a whole bunch of produce, and after playing with Munter, seeing how I had finally been paid, I headed to the seed shop. Purchasing some things, I headed upstairs into the greenhouse, getting the mystery seed planted. You see, it would hopefully get me a gem fruit, and obtaining all of these was my current goal. Naomi told me something about it, I kind of forgot. But wanting to see Vincent, I walked to the square to see Brianna was practicing her goofy lines on a crowd of very interested lads. Vincent luckily didn't see, so after visiting the apartment building and the Japanese cuisine store, I spent some time opening scratch cards as I had gathered quite a bouquet. Not getting anything super exciting, I saw my riches, and wanting to visit the auction house, I noticed quite the commotion outside. You see, Brianna had seemingly unintentionally made the entire crowd of lads follow her around, and they had ran into Vincent. Seeing this strange sight, he gave up all hope and ran away. Oh no, Vincent, my beloved. Heartbroken on his behalf, I returned home to see Brianna standing outside. Apparently, she had one of the gem fruits and handed it over. Nice. 2 out of unknown. Yeah, I got this other one from Stanley. Watering my crops that I purchased yesterday, I decided to meet some new people. First, saying hello to the baker, I met with the old lady and entered a strange range area. Inside was Rufus and his grandson, and heading to the shop, I met Karen the farmer who was selling animal products. I then noticed on my map there was a whole ship down at the beach, so I excitedly headed over. Arriving on the beach, oh, this is something. I entered and met Magnus the captain, his daughter Reese, and his son, also Magnus. Finding a trap door on the floor, I worked my way down, finding 2 treasure chests, taking the contents and making my escape. Karma soon took its toll, and I was viciously attacked by a squid, very almost dying in the process. I definitely did not instigate the fight. Seeing I still had some daylight, I decided to head over to the game center, bought a gumball, and met Reese again, who was working as the shop clerk. Wanting to gift the gumball, I hopped over the counter, and she disappeared from existence. My farm was coming along well now, and seeing how much money I had, the seed shop was my first destination. Saying hello, then buying a few seedlings, I made my way to the greenhouse and was happy to see the plant was growing well. Checking my to-do list, I was told to visit Mr. Fuji's fishing shop, where I found him and Magnus jamming out. They both got in trouble by Magnus, now named Argus, and were forced to stop, as Fuji was apparently supposed to be teaching Magnus fishing. But luckily, Mr. Fuji had sent up a concert for him today in the town square. I excitedly attended, ready to cheer my boy on, but remembered pretty quickly that I had music switched off. This goes hard. On mute. Please, my friend, keep your hidden talent hidden. And talking to Argus after everything had ended, he handed me a peach gem, my third one. My next goal was the blueberry, and I was told to head to the game mall. There I found Byron and Bailey talking outside, and apparently Byron had met a cool girl on Ogre Cloud Online. Lads, it's over. He's an alligator. A bunch of my crops were ready the next morning, so I picked them all, threw them into the shipping bin, played with Munter, hoed around until I got a worm for Nob, petted her, and headed out. My first destination was the seed shop, and heading to the second floor, I was sad to see the flower was wilting. Luckily, the doctor was there and recommended we slather the damn thing in slime gloop. I was tasked to gather it, so I headed east. But before I descended, remember the E-dater named Byron? He was set to meet his date in the forest today, so I snuck out into the wilderness and was shocked to see he had been catfished by his own grandmother. Leaving him to stand in denial, I descended into the mines, and finding the ladder to level 1, I descended. But upon finding a worm thing and killing it, the whole mine began to collapse and I had no choice but to leave, instead taking out the slimes outside for the loot. Unfortunately, I only got 4 out of the 5, so after visiting the vineyard, I headed home to grab the last one. Watering my crops the next day, I was excited to see that Nob had grown into a wonderful hen, now capable of laying me eggs. Setting her to follow, we wandered into town, arrived at the C-store, and after chatting with the owners, Penelope and Camellia, I took the stairs and slathered up the plant. I was told to come back later, so to pass the time, I decided to once again visit the vineyard, because I was sure a gem fruit resided there. But when I entered, I saw quite the happening. The poor mother of four was attempting to buy some cheap wine, but the owner, Versailles, was being very mean and poor-spirited towards the crying children, telling Anastasia to get out when she asked for some milk. And then, with absolute gall, she proceeded to approach the doctor, being nice. He utterly rejected her, saying how rude she was, and left.
Deep in sad reflection.
Apparently, she was going to change her ways, so wishing good luck, I headed back to the seed shop to find nothing about the seed had changed at all. So having a bunch of time to kill, I opened a bunch of scratch cards and returned home to see Versailles petting Munter and giving him treats. Maybe she was serious. Hoping to see more, I saw Nob chop down a tree, then headed to the game mall, said hello to Reese, and got a game of Hungry Cows going. I slowly got the hang of it and got a solid 44 tickets. Leaving in embarrassment, I visited the beach for a second to find Versailles picking up rubbish from the floor. Wow, she truly is dedicated to the bit. Day 14 was the Sakura Festival, so after watering my crops, I headed into the town square. I chatted with just about everyone there, then just sat back and enjoyed the beautiful traditional music showcase. I heard this was popular in the Edo period. When I got back home, I immediately headed out again, and upon checking on the strange plant, it had beautifully flowered. Happily, I left when I saw Wine Lady outside Stanley and Anastasia's house. She felt bad enough about kicking Anastasia out for asking for milk that she had bought some as a gift. Damn. Character development, ladies and gentlemen. The cherry on top was that when I got home, both people had sent me their gem fruits in the mail. I presumed that this was all of them, so remembering that I had to kill the spider now, I headed to the mines, seeing Brianna walking along the way. Descending into the mines, I was quickly stopped by Roger, Brianna's father, saying that she had gone missing. So I told him good luck and spent the night in the caves. The next morning, I watered my crops, said hello to Nob, and cast my rod into the town river. I caught a bunch of algae, wood, and a live crab, so I gave up, greeted Pickle the stray cat, then once again delved into the mines. My goal today was simple, get as far down as possible, but unfortunately I severely underestimated how terrible I am at the game, only making it to level 2 before running out of food and energy, consequentially giving up. Snacking on some dog food the next morning, I harvested all of my crops, then headed into town. I had a quest to catch 3 fish, and wanting to complete it, I threw in my line. But can I stress how much I dislike this system? You can't just catch fish, you have to drop the floaters at the right spot so they land on the fish at the bottom, normally surrounded by seaweed, so missing is easy, and most of the time there won't even be a fish there for you to catch. Hopefully it would get easier if I got a better rod or something. So I just headed to the seed shop for now, talking to Penelope, and got a message saying Penelope noticed you. I feel like I should be grateful. But this did get me thinking, my relationships should be a bit better by now, so I entered the town square and spent some time gathering flowers and handing them out. I entered a random household but was stopped by conversation about ancestors and spirits, maybe? Not completely sure. I headed to the library to read up on it, but found Kyorko there as well, reading up on it. Excited to see where this went, I left, fished for the night, eventually catching 2 fish to complete my quest. Watering my crops on day 17, I arrived at the winery to hand it a gift, but seeing as it was closed, I got to work leveling up Nob. You see, I could hit a tree once and she would run up and break it, and the more she did, the easier it would become. So together, we cleared out the carefully planted trees belonging to Versailles and handed her a gift before randomly stumbling into a forest. There, I found a spirit named Sayaka talking to Roger the carpenter about a missing mystical hot spring somewhere in the mountains. She couldn't be talking about the Wizard Wash, right? The lake outside the Wizard's Tower. Just to check, I headed over, said hello to the resident cat, and wandered around a little, almost giving up before finally finding Kyoko and Mr. Fuji the fisherman talking. They just yapped on about a mystical person who disappeared a long time ago named Sayaka or something, I don't know. Wait a damn minute. Heading up the massive hill named Spirit's Slope, I found Sayaka the spirit and Kyoko talking, eventually ending in the cherry gemstone being handed over. Surely, I would get my grubby hands on it soon. Overall, today was pretty nice. Okay. Watering my crops and clearing some land, I picked up Nob and together we headed into town. I dropped into the seed shop and said hello to Pickle the cat before heading into the other farm where Rufus resided to pick some gifting flowers. I gave them out, found a bomb in the mailbox, and a little worried for my health and safety, I returned to the seed shop where I purchased a bunch of expensive saplings because I was quite balling at this point. But basically all of the stores were closed at this time, so I once again spent the night fishing. It was my birthday on the 19th and the only person to shop was Penelope and my dog Munter. I chose more hearts from gifts as my birthday wish, put my cake in the fridge, watered my crops, and picked up a Nob. Together we wandered back down to the Carpenters, past Wizard's Wash, up Spirit's Slope, and after discovering a strange looking treehouse, I found Kyoko strumming her instrument near the cliff face. She was busy reciting something very deep and meaningful, I'm sure, but the journey had taken so long that I just left, eventually making it back to town. There I checked some stock in the general store and returned to my house to find Kyoko outside, and finally, she handed me the cherry gemstone. Now, I didn't quite know how many more I had to get, but after doing some scratch cards and attempting to cook a fish, I have no idea what I'm doing. I decided the best course of action was just to make friends with everyone, so their gem fruit quests would be opened for me. I gifted the seed shop owners Pickle the cat, took a break to pick some more flowers, checked on the mystery plant, which was now well and truly, heading to the other farm, I gifted the barn store attendant, Karen, a poppy, gave Finn the child a lilac, Eugene a bergamot, Noella a bergamot, and to Vincent, my beloved, I handed a crocus. I turned around to see Eugene moonwalking, and impressed, I watched on as he disappeared from the plane of existence. I picked up Nob the next morning, then scanned my storage shed for potential gifts. You see, I didn't want to venture so deep into the mines quite yet, so I was very happy to just befriend everyone around me before my inevitable death at the hands of the giant spider. Inside the seed shop mailbox, I found some garlic bread, pretty expensive stuff, so I decided to give it away. Penelope was not very happy, so I ran off into the grape field looking for a new friend, when I randomly ran into a huge manor, and carefully entering, I met Richard the rich fat man. He proceeded to fall off into the void. Leaving before the crime was pinned on me, I visited the other farm, finding another bomb in their mailbox, getting scared and promptly left. This time, I was headed to the apartment complex where Naomi lived, as I needed to ask how many gems I had left to find. Unfortunately, she was nowhere to be seen, so I spent the night picking flowers. I once again noticed my fund abundance and decided to spend every cent in the seed shop buying saplings, which would surely turn into a solid investment. Unfortunately, at this point, the mines were the only choice if I wanted to progress, but procrastinating a little, I visited the vineyard and the beach, where I delved under the waves and walked east until I saw some pillars making up some sort of structure. I couldn't get up though, so swallowing my curiosity and my fear, I descended into the mines. Every level I went down would be automatically accessible from the top, so I didn't have to worry about getting far, but a few levels of progress would be nice. Randomly, Nob killed a rock which spawned a door, and going through, I met a massive golden room with 3 massive pots, one containing a sapling, and the whole room was empty other than those. I was brought back to where I left, and left it as simply a strange happening. I got past a goopy level and found another golden room, but arriving at level 5, I decided to leave and happily returned home. I wanted to return to the mines the next day, but was quickly stopped when I realized it was the chicken festival on day 23. I entered and indulged in a game of chicken rhythm game and said hello to everyone there, finding out the inflatable chicken was actually very bouncy, and watched the very impressive chicken dance. I heard this stuff was popular in the Ego period. Thank you everyone, thank you. I had plenty of daylight left, so I returned to the mines, and with newfound confidence, I took down 2 skeleton lads with the help of Nob, who I had brought down here, then found another magical door. I excitedly entered to find a huge amount of small pot. Jackpot, I thought, as I ran in, swinging my pickaxe like crazy. I awoke on day 24 in the doctor's office. It didn't seem like I lost anything important, so I met the nurse, Nancy the robot, and after saying my hellos for the day, seeing Nob completely losing it mentally, I descended once again into the mines, determined to make it to the bottom. It was tough, but aided by a literal nuke I had in my inventory, random golden rooms, and Nob the chicken, I found the boss room. At this point, thanks to my impressive performance in the mines, I thought that I may actually be ready to take on the spider boss. So after handing out some gifts, you know, gotta be married someday, I headed to the Carpenters. You see, I I was hoping that I could be supplied with a slightly better weapon than my current one, a torch. Unfortunately, there were no such weapons for sale, so I wandered all the way home, hyping myself up to kill the spider. I grabbed a bunch of strong explosives I could use to my aid, and bringing Nob along with me, together we made our way to the entrance. This would be tough, but I had to be victorious for my farm, for my friends, for my pride. I headed to the bottom and realized I forgot to bring the gem fruit. On our way home, I decided a stronger bond wouldn't hurt the fight, and there's no better friendship activity than collaborating to destroy government-owned property. I once again got myself hyped the next morning, checked all of my things, saying my final goodbyes, and headed down, and realized I had forgotten the fruit again. I had plenty of time though, so I ran back home, grabbed everything, and returned to the entrance. There I met Roger, Rufus, and Naomi talking about the spider abducting Brianna, who, if you remember, had gone missing. So I carefully headed inside. There was a large arena, and after exploring, rocks started to pour down, and the boss dropped from its web. I quickly placed 2 noxious bombs underneath it, dealing a solid amount of damage. When it dropped to 50%, it fled, dropping more rocks along with baby spiders and toxic bombs. This absolute harassment continued until it eventually came back down, at which point I took my advantage and took it down, freeing Brianna. Everyone gathered inside, and I was helpfully pointed out to that this was only the beginning. This did suck, but this sentiment didn't stick around long when I realized I could now ride around on Nob.
Yo! Oh, the speed.
So I set into the ocean to see the Kappa lads again, but was stopped in my tracks and asked to fetch a cucumber for them. I accepted and returned home, where Stanley was looking a little bit spooked, claiming something was living in my shipping bin. A little bit skeptical, I dropped a bomb inside, and out popped a raccoon who said he wanted some hot dogs. But this wasn't my problem right now. What was that there was a cooking competition, apparently being held tomorrow, so I scoured my fridge to find a nice slice of pie that I could submit. But something unfortunate happened. I arrived at the restaurant, headed upstairs, and after saying my greetings, I found where I submitted the food. But you see, Rufus was standing directly behind, and I ended up just giving it to him. This was not ideal, so I sprinted all the way home, grabbed a random salmon dish, and returned, submitting it on time. The chef began judging, called for a drum roll. Yes, this was actual in-game audio. I ended up coming so low that my dish wasn't even mentioned, so I left and dedicated the day to finding someone to supply a hot dog, giving a bunch of food away to a bunch of people, checking a bunch of shops, but to no avail. I was, though, asked to plant some icy roots for the chef mat, so I gladly planted them. It was now the 28th, and I had still no idea about the hot dog. I took my time asking around one more time, but eventually decided that the best way was just to ask the raccoon. So I dropped another bomb inside, and nothing happened. I tried this a couple more times, but again, to no avail. I had 2 choices, either give up or bring out the big guns. And I decided to bring out the big guns. Fortunately, before it blew up, the raccoon exited and let me know that any cooked meal would do, then retreated back into his home. Feeling a little bad, I picked up a bento I had lying around and handed it over, prompting him to ask if I could get a house upgrade where he could live. The carpenter was someone who could do that, so I ran all the way over to the shop, but it was closed. So I instead grabbed some silk from the spider boss and went to the beach, remembering about something being repaired using it. I needed some lumber though, so I cooked some up. It was the first day of summer on day 29, as well as the day that my lumber was ready, and the day the bridge on the beach was finally repaired. On the other side, I found another cave, presumably lived in by the next boss, as well as a beach villa for the price of 15 grand. It had a cute little fishing area as well as a locked house. I couldn't afford it, unfortunately, so remembering about the house upgrade, I visited the carpenters and checked the price for an upgrade, it being 1,000 gold, 10 lumber, and 10 bricks. That was doable, but for today, I didn't want to get these things. I wanted to find Pickle's living quarters. You see, I had been befriending this little guy and was allowed inside. Suddenly on the move, I followed closely behind it, still riding Nob. Heading inside the hidey hole we had arrived at, I found a quaint little room with some paintings and waving cats. This wasn't exactly what I was expecting. I spent the night getting stuck behind a swinging seat while Charlotte moonwalked. I decided when I arrived home it was time for me to take on the beach cave, so I excitedly ran over and entered, confidence boosted by my overpowering performance against the spider. The inside was flooded and the only monsters seemed to be cute little crabs who had no intention of hurting me whatsoever. There were also these tree stump looking goofs who also seemed to have no intention to hurt me, not caring at all that I was even there in the first place. Leaving after a bit, I decided that these caves were far superior. I spent the night processing some goods for the house upgrade. Day 31 was a great one since everything I had been working towards was finally ready. I had enough resources for the house now, the cucumber was ready, and the ice roots were ready as well. I first ran all the way to the carpenters and deposited everything, and surprisingly, it was all done in an instant. Excited to see my new house, I first wandered over to the restaurant and entered, handing over the ingredients. Simon was very excited, asking me which flavor I enjoyed, so I chose sweet, wondering what kind of dessert he would hand me. Escargot. That's snails, if you didn't already know. He also gave me the lemon gemstone though, so I was fine. I had one more pit stop before my house, that being the Kappa household. Sinking down, I entered the shack and handed the food over. Apparently, it was for Boo the turtle, certainly a good cause. But they wanted lettuce now, so I quickly rushed home, planted the seeds, and marveled at my new home. The raccoon was also very happy with it, handing me the strawberry gemstone. I spent the night playing at the game mall. I visited the seed shop the next day since my fund count was alarmingly dwindling. Buying some random seeds, I decided that day I would attempt to climb the largest mountain in the game. Something peak. I forgot. I soon arrived at the Pine Hideaway, costing 150,000 gold. Crossing a precarious bridge, I climbed even higher, eventually arriving at the lodge, which was quaint but not the peak. I continued onwards, upwards, and finally made it. There was nothing there. It was quite a fall though. You may be wondering why I wanted to explore the area. Well, you see, the very next day was the fireworks festival, which was conveniently placed at the very peak. So since everyone was already there, I simply had to retrace my steps, eventually finding a sign and a couple of people climbing the final slope and arriving at the celebration. I chatted with everyone, then decided, as thanks for being my only birthday attendant, to give Penelope a ticket to the hot air balloon. I let the bags go and then fell off, pissing her off a little. So we restarted, and being careful not to fall off, we slowly floated upwards past 50 meters, past 100 meters, and finally to 150 meters. Man, the view up here is, repetitive. I pranced around a little, then slipped off, falling a fatal 150 meters and leaving Penelope in the balloon. I ended the day watching the beautiful fireworks with the townsfolk. Penelope's been up there for hours, by the way. Another successful prank. Visiting the seeds shop, I was happy to see she was alive. I don't know how she managed it though. She seemed to have forgotten about the entire incident, so I made a quick visit to Karen the farmer and was browsing the stock when Nob, sadly, decided to end it all. Let us pray. I'd basically done all of the gemstone quests I could for now, so to procrastinate completing the beach caves, I noticed that there was an area above the game center that seemed to be almost reachable. So I would climb this area behind the fish shop, then jump to just barely make the distance, then from the mall roof, I would hop over. There was nothing there. I remembered that seaweed was Charlotte's favorite gift on day 35, and seeing as I had some, I wandered into town, over to the auction house, and headed inside. She was there, so I handed it over, which was my very first loved gift. My lettuce was also ready, so I sank down to the Kappa's house again, headed inside, and fed it to Boo, who gave me a pear gem fruit in return. Now that I had my grubby hands on it, there was no more point in waiting. I descended into the beach caves and got to work. Might I say again, since I had forgotten, this place is awesome. Angry enemies are rare, so you can just hit rocks with Nob the chicken and hang out with the surrounding crabs and stump men. As such, I was quick enough to reach level 10, grab the chest, and once again meet Naomi. She said that I could find the final gem at the game mall since I was missing one. So I wandered over, got access to the racing field, paid the small fee, and watched on as Nob absolutely violated the other contestants, almost lapping them on a single lap track. We won by a landslide and were rewarded with a pineapple gemstone. So on day 36, it was time for me to take on the next boss, a giant squid. I did my usual rounds, saying my final farewells, but no one really seemed to care, so I just descended the mines. No one was at the entrance to the fight to cheer me on, so I meekly entered. The battle arena was a seemingly infinite ocean with a pitch black sky. Truly terrifying, but that sentiment was quickly lost when the boss spawned. He was a goofy looking fellow who seemed pretty chill until I got too close, at which point there was a relatively short fight, me almost dying, but with the help of Nob, he was quickly taken down. Naomi congratulated me and said the next area was in the back of the old mines. I really couldn't be bothered right now though, so I spent some time fishing, and also Nob fell off again. It's just really funny to me, I don't know why. Giving myself a little more free time before moving on to the next boss, I spent some time socializing. First getting familiar to growing together, which was maybe 6 or 7 out of 10 in terms of friendship. I'm writing this as I'm playing, so I'm still not sure to be honest. I then chatted with Versailles and the game center lads before returning to the bridge area near the mines to find Penelope and a lad named Taru chatting. He gave her some ice cream and, uh-oh lads, it seems I have competition. Safely ignoring it for now, I instead visited the mines where Roger was standing. He told me that blowing this wall to access the mines would call for a very precise measurement. Impossible, without the help of a burger. I had a lot of work to do on day 38 because I needed a burger. You see, a burger costs 325 tickets, and currently having 75 to my name, I got to work. Beginning on the strength meter, I was getting absolutely nowhere, so I moved on to the chicken game. Got actually pretty far, but realized I had only got 38 tickets for my troubles. So I moved on to the big guns, and the biggest gun of them all, hungry cows. In this game, you have to charge the throws correctly to land food in the cows' mouths, and I was pretty proficient in it, getting me the needed tickets. It was expensive, but I finally had the burger. I just need to... Yep, I fed the burger to Nob. Considering some marinate chicken wings for dinner today, I did all of the games again, eventually getting the needed tickets and purchasing the burger, running straight to the mines and handing it over. Roger ate it up, and with his precise measurements and head clear, completely blew himself up. I nonetheless now had safe passage into the new little area with slimes, and I was told to get some slime oil to repair the elevator. But there was something slightly weirder around. Say hello to the perverted snail. Apparently, this goober was a wizard turned snail by a witch for being a creepy little pervert man. These suspicions were affirmed by the photos on the wall. He had very kindly, though, asked me to retrieve a potion from his wizard's tower. So the next morning, I headed straight over, hopped over the balcony door to catch Naomi inside. She also talked to me about the wizard's perverted behavior, but was still happy to hand me the potion she had found. Grateful, I returned to the snail hole and handed over the concoction, which it consumed, handing me a blackberry gem fruit. Hoping I did the right thing, I bought some seeds and fished for the night. Day 40 was a big one, mostly because, thanks to the seaweed, I'd finally gotten my first friend to trust complete, probably near max friendship. Now, it's because her gift is really easy to obtain, okay, I swear. Charlotte was actually the auction house assistant, which made me realize that I'd never really used the auction house, prompting me to begin selling my first item, a mimic cake. Surprisingly, it ended up going over the appraised price, gaining me a free 100 gold. Wanting to use it, I excitedly bidded for a new female calf, but quickly realized that I was outmatched, and with no funds to spare, I left in shame. I did some fishing the next morning, and upon catching some seaweed, I handed it over to Charlotte, getting my very first full friendship friend. Happy about this, I decided to try my luck down in the slime mines, so I descended and found it was actually relatively tame down there. Easily enough making it to level 5, then retiring back to the surface. There I chatted with some villagers, then stumbled across the game mall and decided to spend some money on upgrading my chicken steed. This training, of course, was very difficult, but surely worth it in the end. It was the fishing festival on day 42, so I happily wandered to the beach riding Knob and entered to see everyone celebrating. I chatted away, then claimed a bunch of worms, attached them to my hook and got fishing. The competition was to hook either the largest or the ugliest anglerfish possible, so after some casting, hooking, and careful deliberation, I placed my fish inside. It was time for the judging, and my fish ended up coming third. I think that's a decent effort. So I returned home, but was surprised to see Knob had gone missing. Not on the farm, not in the coop, so a little worried, I headed into town. Luckily, I found her standing on the beach where I had been fishing. Relieved, I decided that in case Knob actually did go missing, that I needed another animal, namely a cow. So I entered the auction house, but there was no cow. So I left, returned, and still no cow. So I left, returned, and still no cow. So I gave up. A cow was still a goal of mine, but for now, I wanted to take a break and instead descended into the slime caves with Knob, and together we relatively easily climbed all the way down to the bottom. I was greeted by Naomi and she told me to get some gem fruits. I already had them, but not wanting to fight the boss today, I simply grabbed them and repeatedly reset until a female calf appeared for sale. I actually almost got it for 10% of the appraised price, but unfortunately had to bid over the appraised value just to secure it. Eventually, I did win, had a chat with Karen the farmer, and said hello to my brand new calf. But sadly, there may have been no point in me getting it. You see, today was the day I took on the slime boss and possibly perished. So I said my final goodbyes to the bunch of the nearest and most convenient townsfolk, descended and went through the door. It was another seemingly infinite expanse, dark sky and slime green ocean. Genuinely really cool in my opinion. And then the slime boss spawned. Me and Knob clapped his cheeks, and Naomi congratulated me on the victory. That was very easy. And I'd gotten the slime oil as well, so after quickly checking on the potion's effect on the perverted snail, I handed it over to Rufus, who told me to meet him in the caves later on. So to kill time until tomorrow, I entered Knob into another race. She won by the entire race, even learning a new trick. Look at this, that's pretty cool. Whoa. On day 45, the snail potion still hadn't taken effect, but thankfully the slime oil had. Rufus quickly fixed up the elevator and I was allowed down into a spooky lava area. Outside, I met an ogre who was not very happy to see me, so I tried to fight it, taking half my health, and made the intelligent decision. I left immediately. Wondering if I had to visit the wizard's tower for the potion to take effect, I ran all the way there, entered, but found nothing. Other than the resident cat, there was a strange hatch that seemed to be locked. Most curious. On a whim, I wondered if there was a key somewhere in the wizard's wash, so I explored the whole thing, but to no avail, finally ending the day fishing in the river. And I must say, with bait, this game is actually really growing on me. Still takes a little too long, but you know, it's pretty relaxing. My honeydew lemons were ready for harvest, so I grabbed them and ran into town, giving one to Penelope, getting her to maxed hearts. Now, this is hype because, lads, my main goal is marriage. So with max friendship secured, I wandered around, wondering about the next step. I randomly entered the game hole and found something on the prizes wall, the Golden Promise engagement ring, for only 5,000 tickets. And I had 206. As such, playing these goofy little arcade games was my life for that day, eventually running a little low on cash, but did end up getting 1,000 tickets, was forced to leave, fishing for the rest of the day to make some money back. Knowing how many minigames I had to play, I set a card quest to complete them, and literally played arcade games for the entire day, emptying my entire wallet. But I did get halfway to the ring, but with no feasible funds left, I had some fun racing Knob, once again clapping the opponents. But the following morning, I realized I literally had no money at all. This is enough for 3 games of hungry cows. As such, the only option for me at this point was to fish for money. So I stood there for the entire morning, slowly using the free bait I got from the fishing festival to catch myself an impressive catalog. Then, getting bored, I decided to spend the last 500 of my funds at the game hall. I had 10 shots on power pick and ended up getting a solid 193 tickets. I left with an empty wallet and spent the rest of the day trying to get this damn chest off the top of the fancy restaurant, as well as this chest above the church. I ended up getting neither. I still had 19 gold the next morning. You see, Stanley loves to take random breaks and just doesn't do his job. This man claims he's busy, by the way. What an actual grand feeder. But ultimately, that's all spilled milk. So instead of complaining, I descended into the lava mines to see how feasible it was to complete. I got a decent way in and the enemies were probably harder, but there were massive pools of lava, magma or something, at 1000 degrees Celsius, or 1832 Fahrenheit, that you could just walk through. Very cool. I got to level 5, left and returned home, remembering there that I actually had a crafting menu. I scrolled down a little, eventually finding a mayonnaise maker, which required iron to craft. I didn't have any at all, so I ran all the way back to the mines and broke a bunch of rocks there, but to no avail. I realized something the next morning, and that was that I had free will. I can do whatever I want. I don't need to go mining, play arcade games, buy a ring. I can just spend the entire day in the forest picking berries and flowers. I don't know why, this is just infinitely enjoyable for me. I'm calm when I'm picking virtual flowers in the virtual forest. What's up, guys? It's Editor RedTM here, and unfortunately, I'm a complete and utter imbecile. Basically, I had a 4-hour recording of days 51 to 60, then accidentally named a later on recording the same thing. Thinking I had to, I deleted one of them, then cleared the recycling bin. Upon realizing, I went into a deep depression, was saved by my boy on a Discord call, and now I'll do my best to go over everything that happened and show it as well. First, I realized that there's something in between first meeting someone in marriage, so I bought some chocolates and handed them over.
Guys, we're literally dating. This is so hype.
I then reached the bottom of the lava caves, then upgraded my cow, who I named Crowbar. I then went up against the lava cave's final boss, a crab, if I remember correctly, freeing someone named Mia, apparently the goddess of Cornucopia. She took residence in the currently empty wizard's tower along with the cat. And finally, I discovered the final cave, the ice cave, but was a bit too scared to venture far inside.
I also went on a date. Maybe I should go on in real life.
Now, back to your normal scheduled programming. I harvested a bunch of crops and wooded the rest using my special ability, then headed down to the town, accompanied with Crowbar, to buy some more. I then decided that enough was enough. I would stay down in the old mines until I got some iron at least, and was casually swinging around when I realized something. Iron doesn't look like the other ores, so presumably I just missed them in my storage shed. So I placed down a random explosive I had found and... Wait, why isn't it exploding? Hello? Yo, is it gonna explode? Uh-oh. Wait a minute. Crowbar was gone. She had been killed by the explosion. I solemnly returned, checked my storage to find 58 iron ore sitting there. This was great, I'd smelted them, but rest in peace, Crowbar. The next morning, I placed some more furnaces, cooked some more iron, and after watering and tending to my chickens, I entered the barn by habit to find Crowbar alive and healthy, just chilling there. I was quite happy enough in fact, to head to the auction house and spend the entire day down there waiting for a male calf for Crowbar to appear. One never did. I was still determined though, so after using my new iron to craft up some mayonnaise machines, I headed right back to the auction house. Seeing the item for sale, resetting, waiting, checking, and resetting. Upsettingly, male calves had apparently gone extinct, so I had no chance but to get money through crops instead, buying a bunch of seeds and planting them down on my farm. I woke up early the next morning and wait, look what happens when I milk Crowbar. I find this to be slightly comedical. I had plenty of space on my farm, so I headed to the seed shop and bought a bunch, but before I returned to plant them, I wanted to spend the last of my money, to be specific, on chickens. So I made the tough hike all the way up the mountain and arrived at the lodge, sending 2 baby chickens to my coop. And while I was there, I decided I might as well delve into the ice cave. So I did, making it to level 5 and finally gaining the trust to ride Crowbar. This is so hype. I left on level 6 to preserve my life. I was petting my chickens on day 65 when I got an upgrade, and I decided to choose a random breeding nut. I fed it to my rooster, grabbed another from my storage, and fed it to Knob. In a couple of seconds, a fertilized egg had popped out, so I got to work crafting up 2 incubators, placing them down and beginning the hatching process. While I waited, I remembered that there was actually a cow vending machine all the way in the wizard's tower, so I ran over, said hello to Mia, and bought 2 of them. Unfortunately, they weren't brought straight to the barn, instead just placed right in front of me, so I spent the day making one of them follow me all the way home. I did make it safely, but there was still one more child there, as well as Crowbar, so after tending to my farm, I made the walk all the way over, picked up the other calf, walked all the way back, hatched my baby chicken, then walked all the way to the wizard's tower, and rode Crowbar all the way home. I feel as if there was a slight miss here in terms of game design, but all was forgiven the next next morning as a bunch, if not the majority of my crops were ready for harvest. I sold them all, surely making me thousands, crafted 2 more mayonnaise machines, bought a bunch more seeds at the seed shop, and still with more than enough funds, I once again made the tough hike up to the mountain, past my ultimate goal, the Pine Hideaway, up some more slopes, and arrived at the lodge, buying not 2, but 3 baby chickens. I returned to the coop where I said hello and noticed that one of my chickens had 2 heads. I got nothing to say. I spent that night planting a huge amount of crops on my farm. I had a lot of crops, sure, but I also wanted more cows, and seeing as I had enough to afford one, I headed eastwards towards the Wizard's Tower. I took a quick stop at the carpenter's to check the price of a coop upgrade, that being 10 grand, and made the rest of the journey, and after saying hello to the resident cat and goddess of Cornucopia, I wandered back. Placing him safely in the barn, I walked out again to buy some seeds and pick up crowbar, planting for the rest of the night. I watered everything and was pretty content on day 69. You see, all of my crops were growing well, my coop was filled, and my wallet was invested enough not to be able to purchase another cow. So I made the intelligent decision and headed off to the arcade. When I entered though, I saw something new. There was a gem fruit, which I didn't have yet, there for sale, being 1,000 tickets. Unfortunately, I don't have time for that. I'm here to get married, so I spent all of my funds and a decent chunk of my day sitting at Hungry Cows playing away. I made it to 4,000 tickets overall, left thanks to burnout, and decided to visit the Kappa household. Handing out some gifts, nothing was really going on, so I left, sold some cheese I got as prizes from the Hungry Cows, bought some more seeds, and got to work collecting the resources I needed for the tier 2 coop upgrade. Now, being extra poor thanks to my arcade shenanigans, I decided that while I waited for more money to flow in, to reach the bottom of the ice cave, I hiked up the mountain, got lost a little, but found my way inside. Unfortunately, a little way into descending to level 10, I realized that food was scarce, and the stuff I had really was not fit for health regeneration. But being the brave man I am, I continued on forth, killing monsters and hitting rocks, eventually finding my way to level 10. Naomi was once again there to greet me, and I saw I needed the game mold gem to progress. That's unfortunate, I thought, as I jumped off a cliff. I did make it home safe, by the way, for all you crowbar enthusiasts. My cows were beginning to produce milk now, so expecting a machine to process it, I opened the crafting menu, but the only thing I found was this gourmet processor, and since it seemed reasonable enough that it processed milk or something, I put some gold up for smelting. While I waited, I headed over to the seed shop and made a purchase, as I still needed 150,000 gold for the Pine Hideaway, but I also wanted gold for tickets so I could get the engagement ring. With this goal in mind, I said hello to Mia and spent the night fishing. My gold was ready the next morning, so after watering my crops and tending to my animals, I crafted the processor up. Unfortunately, it didn't want milk, but large vegetables, so I begrudgingly threw in an artichoke, bought some more seeds and planted them, before getting to work clearing and cleaning the front area of my farm. At that point, Stanley sold my produce, giving me 10,000 gold. The processor, by the way, had given me artichoke ore. Pretty expensive stuff though, so I was happy enough to sell it off and headed straight to the arcade. You see, I now had more than enough money to fund 1,000 more tickets for the ring, so I loaded up Hungry Cows and played my heart out. I was burning out and tiring quickly, so my score and ticket rewards were worsening by the minute, but wanting to get the ring today kept me going, spending more and more. Eventually reaching the threshold, I bought the ring, rode over to the seed shop, and it was closed. The processor as a whole had been a bit of a failure, but luckily I unlocked a butter churn. This wasn't my current concern though. I headed straight into town over to the seed shop and handed over the ring. Lads, this is so romantic. Okay, back to the butter churn. I needed some iron for them, as seeing as I had none, I threw some in the furnace and waited their processing. When they finished, I crafted one up and placed it outside the barn. I had easily enough money at this point to buy the coop upgrade, so I rode over to the carpenter, submitted my items, and got the upgrade. Next on my to-do list was obtaining the fig gem fruit, which cost 1,000 tickets at the game mall, so I once again locked in on Hungry Cows, popped off, and bought the fig in no time at all. Day 76 was a very special day. You see, it was finally the day that I could get married. So excited, I headed into town, into the square, and up to the church. Inside, everyone was gathered. Rufus walked down the middle slowly. We said our vows, and it was over. Only Gertrude remained, who was annoyed that I had shoes on. But that wasn't the only reason day 76 was special, as straight after the ceremony, I grabbed all of my necessary explosives and rode all the way to the ice cave, descended to the boss floor, and taking a moment to gather myself, I headed inside. It was once again a dark expanse, but this time, Winter, the pink-haired man, had been trapped, so working together with Crowbar, I easily took down the boss.
Here's to our hero. You've proven that even the most ordinary of us can do extraordinary things. Now let's celebrate this momentous occasion.
I may have beaten the game, but there was still so much to do. I ended the hectic day by planting the sapling the final boss had dropped carefully in the corner. I received some bribe money from Winter the next day, asking me not to spread that he got trapped. But me, I would never take a bribe. I at least have some pride in, but 10,000, you say? consider it done, my friend. Using the money, I headed to the seed shop and filled my inventory, filling my farm when I arrived home. I decided it would be courteous to befriend Naomi at this point because of how much she gave me as I killed the bosses. So I headed over and handed her a gift before checking the date. Winter was coming in fast, so I bought literally every seed in the seed shop and spent the entire day massively expanding my farm for one last push towards the 150,000 by the end of fall. I really felt this extra expansion the next morning though, as it seemed just watering this amount took me all the way to midday. As such, I unfortunately only had time to do one thing, and that was to rush all the way over to the Wizard's Tower and say hello to Mia after killing the boss, who had absolutely nothing new to say, and do some training with Crowbar at the game hall. As such, I was very happy to see some of my plants were ready for harvest on day 80. The fewer there are, the fewer neurons I lose attempting to water them every morning. When I was done, I remembered the hype of winning a match, and wanting to feel something, I returned to the game hall, did some training, played 2 games in a row, winning the first without touching the sprint button, and the second by a landslide. Now, unfortunately, and completely on me, it seems I've lost the footage from day 81 to 4, so while I run to the Wizard's Tower, let me just quickly explain what I did. Basically, nothing special happened. I got a massive harvest, boosting my funds by a lot, and discovered the auction house as being a viable strategy to earn money. I would bring in expensive dishes or gems, auction them off, and then repeat, and today was no exception. I had a couple of 1,500 diamonds in my inventory, and setting them to auction, I sold them at 1,650, and then 1,800, easy, 400 extra gold. Anyways, seeing as there was the last day of fall, I headed over to the beach, bought some bait, and spent the night there fishing, appreciating the snowless landscape while it lasted. It was officially the first day of winter, and my chickens were still hanging out outside. Very annoying. So after tending to the good lads still in the coop, I picked up an especially annoying hen and walked it to the auction house. I put him up for adoption, and the bidding war was won by Mia. Hopefully, the hen is turned into soy garlic. I sold some other items, then simply wanting to appreciate the view and gather money for the Pine Hideaway, I spent the day out in the forest gathering berries and checking on the cat. I had another money-making idea the next morning, that being building a tumbler. So I set up some stuff to smelt, then crafted one up, placing it near the smelters and placing in a cluster. It apparently took 3 hours, so in the meantime I returned to the Wizard's Tower to befriend the goddess and the cat. And with a couple of expensive gems in hand, I auctioned them out. I got some decent enough value, returned home, and threw a raw emerald in the tumbler. Surprisingly, the raw emerald had given me an emerald. This was worth a whopping 1,400, so excited to see how many people wanted it, I first visited the goddess and reached maximum affection. And I won't be visiting anymore, okay? I have a wife. Leaving quickly, I arrived at the auction house, and putting the emerald up for grabs, I was amazed at how high it got, that a couple others got it to almost double the appraised value. To celebrate, I rode Crowbar over to the races and spent a little time cheering my boy on as she won another race by a landslide. I was headed back to the auction house the next day when I noticed something. There were still seeds available at the seed shop, so curious to whether or not they grew in winter, I bought a couple, sold another emerald which didn't make it as high as the last, planted the seeds when I got home, and excitedly realizing that they might actually grow, I ran back to the seed shop and bought every stock that they had. I spent the night planting them all. But do remember, I need 150,000 gold for the hideaway. This measly farm ain't gotta cut it, so I returned to the seed shop, bought it out once again, and spent the day setting it all up. Watering these was a real pain, sure, but I had little time to complain. I needed to squeeze as much cash out of each day as possible. So starting on day 90, I finished watering, headed straight to the auction house with a ruby and some dishes, sold them off, then sat at the water's edge and fished for money. This is a little difficult in terms of profit without any bait though. I needed 78,000 gold in the next 9 days, so I made myself a bit of a routine. I would tend to my animals, harvest any crops that were ready, water everything, buy seeds, then repeat. I did the same thing on day 92 and on day 93, but becoming more and more careful about where I planted my crops. You see, each seed has a different preferred soil type, asking for more bioactivity or potassium or whatever it might be, and the price of the vegetable it produces was affected. As such, to maximize profit, I would make sure to take care of where I was planting everything. After watering on day 94, I realized that at the current pace, I wasn't going to make it. So scouring through my storage shed, I began work, grabbing anything extra that I could sell and throwing it in the shipping bin. This helped me to reach 100,000 on day 95, and seeing that that strategy was working, I changed nothing about my routine. Continuing through day 96, I admired my farm that was really taking shape for the first time so far in this video, and also began to open more clusters as I realized they could hold some pretty expensive stuff. Time was really closing in now on day 97, but I had a huge amount of crops ready as well, which I threw in the bin, totaling 19,000 gold. But Wait a minute. When I woke the next morning, I had received none of it. This was not good. You see, Stanley doesn't work on weekends. As such, the next day that I could receive money from the shipping bin was 6 p.m. on day 99. And in general, the only other place to sell was closed on Sundays. I swear, some divine power up there really doesn't want me to buy this a lodge. Thankfully, the general store finally opened on day 99, so I headed over. I needed 30,000 in total, had 20,000 in the bin, but realized that the store selling got me less money, 50% less to be exact. That meant I would need an extra 10,000 gold worth of things, which to be honest, there was no way I had. There was only one way to complete this challenge then, and it was to fit the last 10,000 I needed into the shipping bin, which was already full by 6 p.m. I got to work getting rid of anything that wasn't super expensive and replacing them, stacking up on stuff already in there, and eventually hit more than 30,000 gold in one box. Relieved, I took an early night. And finally, it was day 100. I hopped on Crowbar, and with 150,000 gold in my pocket, I entered the wilderness, ran through the snowy, tranquil forest, up the slope, and arrived at the Pine Hideaway. It used to be a mere dream, but finally, it was mine. Thank you so much for watching.
Damn, that's a nice looking house, but who needs a house when you can go underwater? Do keep in mind though, this video was recorded some updates ago, so it doesn't contain all the content.
Welcome to Dave the Diver, the game of catching fish with a harpoon or any other weapon, then preparing and selling them in your very own sushi shop, all while learning to farm, exploring deeper into the ocean, and uncovering an ancient underwater civilization. This game is just so cool, so please subscribe and enjoy the video. I began my journey relaxing on a sunny beach. A hermit crab climbed into my chair and, I got a call and picked up. It was a man proposing we get sushi. So I packed up and headed off. I arrived on a boat in the middle of a lake, and diving in, I was tasked with catching 3 fish with my harpoon. I did this relatively easily, and wanting some sushi, we returned to our soon-to-be sushi shop, when suddenly an earthquake struck, and in no time at all, our hard work had been completely destroyed. But my sushi chef Bancho insisted I go out and catch 7 more fish, and we would still open that night, so I complied.
7 more fish. Surely like some of them sell for more money, right? What? There's big lads. What? Dude, I panicked. I had to click. I'm running out of oxygen though. I need some fishies quickly. Maybe that won't help. Oh, oxygen, let's go.
Also, you may be wondering why I only spent 47 days in the game. You'll have to watch on to find out.
What? There's a guy chasing me. Get away. Wait. Ah! Wait, I'm stabbing him. I stabbed him.
And so we headed back home. When we arrived, I put all the new fish onto the menu, learned how to pour tea and deliver dishes, then opened up shop.
Irashaimase. Hey, W, 10 bucks. I'm only $89 in debt now.
But that night, a mysterious boat was approaching. Never mind. Yeah, never mind. They were approaching. I was called by a woman named Ellie the next morning, asking me for some things.
Get me agar and red starfish. Get me 2 of each. Your tone makes me want to refuse. Reward? Never mind, I'm in.
But this is when I realized I had an actual phone.
Yo, so I have a full phone. What's the weather like? Sunny, sunny, sunny. That's great to hear. There's just a calculator. Thank you for this, diving with Dave. Oh, I got some mail. Do you want to be rich? Yeah. Click now. Oh. I'm out. I gotta go fishing. Red starfish. Perfect. What is this guy? Oh. It's a pufferfish. Oh, wait, I'm so dumb. Running out of air. Uh-oh. No,
I unfortunately died.
Look at this goof.
Luckily, this opened up an exciting opportunity to handle a firearm. So we called up Duff, the weapons
gun
expert.
Boy. Who's that goofy looking guy?
Who told me to dive and grab a rope and some iron.
Okay, off I go. Sleepy toy hammer. Put fish to sleep. The sound effect.
As I had successfully gotten the materials, I had gotten a new app for my weapons on my phone, and crafting up a gun. I will just let you watch this. Now that was all done, it was time to open the stall. I decided to use some fish to enhance the flavor of a dish, so there wasn't much to serve today. I nonetheless surpassed yesterday's earnings. A boat pulled up the next morning. Within it was a man named Dr. Bacon. He explained that there used to be an ancient underwater society that was wiped out by something, and he wanted me to help him uncover it. My friend readily accepted. My reward was a new app which allowed me to upgrade certain parts of my scuba suit, where I upgraded my weight. And so, tasked with getting an artifact and wanting to try my gun, I dived in.
Oh, it's the artifact. Yay.
Dr. Bacon thanked me and gave me some things. 300 gold. Turmeric. We returned to the sushi bar where, thanks to my hard work, the place had been fully restored. As well as this, Bancho had started an account on Cookster where we could upgrade our reputation, but we couldn't open yet, so I dived back into the ocean where a dolphin approached me.
Hello. Yeah, it's going pretty quickly, I can't lie. Oh, that's cute. A pearl? That's awesome.
I got back with a bunch of fish when disaster struck. A person came into the shop who was Bancho's old boss or something, and they argued a little before they decided that Bancho would prove himself by cooking a shark's head. And of course, I was tasked with getting it, but that's a job for tomorrow. Unfortunately, tomorrow had already come, and Dr. Bacon was back. He handed me a radar that apparently pointed me to something. I didn't know what, so I obviously scrolled through social media for a while, which felt a little strange doing it in a video game.
I don't like this strange guy serving it though. Hashtag yum yum. Okay, off I go.
I then dived in following the device's signal. I unfortunately soon found out that my swimsuit couldn't handle going that deep, so I instead decided to fight a literal shark. Luckily for me, I had been picking up blueprints for a new gun which shot 3 times in one go, but this was still not enough and I had to escape. A man in a pedal boat had shown up. He grabbed my phone without permission and downloaded a new app explaining that it collected a card every time I caught a new fish, like a collection.
Gotta fish 'em all. They're catching a lawsuit.
I thought this was pretty cool, so I spent some time catching a bunch of fish before returning to the shop. We sold a whole bunch of sushi, got to 10 followers on Cookster, and decimated yesterday's earnings. The biologist called me again the next morning asking for a bunch of seashells. Luckily, I had already picked some up, so I completed a goofy quest in a matter of seconds. This unlocked for me a brand new app which gave me tasks to help sustain the environment, or something. So I played on my phone for a while, looking at my locked apps and my fish collection, then dived in. Awaiting me was the dolphin again, whose friend, the pink dolphin, was stuck in a net. So I got chopping when I realized that people above me were shooting their guns at me. How is this legal? I luckily got the dude free, collecting my reward, collected some oxygen, and got to work catching small fish for my collection. I also found a squid and, determined to catch it, spent my whole dive down there. Sending the fish back, I dove back in with a new strategy: firearms. I pulled my weapon out and just started shooting the bastards, which I found was a much easier strategy. Returning to the sushi stall, I set up the menu, enhanced a bunch of dishes, and got serving for the day. Unfortunately, I simply wasn't fast enough. I think it's time to get some new employees. I needed some copper to craft a triple axle, so I dived in to get some. But then I realized something. Apparently, the whole area would change every certain amount of time. I don't know what that time is, but I don't oh, nice. I can use these to make guns. Sending a bunch of seafood back to the shop, I opened up my phone and bought a whole bunch of upgrades to my suit using my money. I could now carry a whole bunch, my harpoon did more damage, and I had more air. I was ready. I also noticed a new area with a title. This is exciting. Unfortunately, it was too deep, but there was a box. Golf club. There was a whole bunch of new and hopefully expensive fish here now, so I filled my massive weight with a bunch of them. Once I was done, I returned and was ready to hire some staff. I couldn't. Enhancing some dishes, I actually managed to not miss a single order today. Not a great feat, but I'm still very proud of myself. Please.
Yes. Let's go. Not one angry customer today. Holy.
Oh my... Damn. I upgraded my suit and tank the next morning, then realized I needed that money to craft my gun. I guess one more day until I fight the shark. I headed down and out of a box, I found a toy hammer which had a chance to put fish asleep, so I caught all of the jellyfish. I also tried to catch a pufferfish. I'm right there. I dove back in, but not wanting to use my gun on the fish as that gave less meat or something, I'm not sure. I searched for a non-lethal weapon.
Non-lethal dart gun. That's huge. I'm gonna kill the I mean, not not kill. I'm gonna collect the squid game now. Nice.
Coming back to the surface, I also realized I'd unlocked the blueprint for the dart gun.
Okay, so I need some starfish. I think I'll go for this when I need to catch fish, and this when I need to shoot sharks and stuff.
That night at the sushi shop, I enhanced a bunch of dishes, realized jellyfish really wasn't a good food at all, and researched a whole bunch of new recipes. Just check out this badass scene. Just take it in. And on top of this, some new people had arrived. I think they were critics, and after examining the store, they gave us a silver rank on Cookster. Good stuff. I only failed a couple of orders that night, still making bank. My new weapon was finally being crafted. By this goof apparently. But now that I had this, I scrolled through my collection for a little, then dived right in, ready to take on the shark. For Bancho's teacher, maybe? But I really don't know. I eventually found it, and using my gun, I was easily able to take it down.
Let's go. Oh, I can also follow the radar now.
But on my way down, I ran into
guy.
another shark, this one with a gigantic saw attached to its head.
What? Huh? Oh no, I ran out of bullets. Yes. What a stinky lad. Yes, some ammo. I can kill the big guy. Oh, Dr. Bacon.
Dr. Bacon told me to come up, so I ignored him and took on the saw shark.
Hey, nice. Give me that meat. I mean, okay.
I then headed up. Dr. Bacon greeted me at the surface, and Cobra explained how to get through the ancient stones.
You have to use a bomb, of course.
But to get the bomb, we would need a drone to find the sunken ship from the beginning, so I dived in looking for current areas where parts of the drone could have landed. So I swam around for a little before arriving at the limestone cave.
A bomb. Oh! What's this? Computer chip. Nice. What? There's a boat. What is this? There's a box there. I want that. What? I wonder if that's too big for me to deal with. Yeah, I'm running as fast as I can. That is...
Returning to the sushi shop, I researched a couple new recipes, then finally put the shark head onto the menu. Just one problem. I thought I had time after closing to get it to her. At this point, even with the best pathing possible, it was impossible to serve this many customers. And unfortunately, I ran out of time to get the shark head to the mentor, or boss, or really...
Yo, it's raining today. Yes, I can craft the harsh dart.
Yay! I quickly checked my Cookster timeline, then dived in with the goal of finding more drone bits. But I got a little carried away with my new dart gun and ended up grabbing way too many fish than I needed, being forced to find an escape pod. I sent all the fish over, then dove right back in.
Okay, I'm gonna head down again and see if I can get more drone bits.
I headed down into the depths, carefully avoiding another saw shark, until a box gave me some explosives.
Bombs. Wait, can I stick it to this guy? Oh, wait, come here, buddy. That's awesome. Wait for him to attack. Set up a bomb. Nice. Come here. Let's go.
Once the shark was down, I caught some more fish, was chased down to the brink of death by this goof of a fish, luckily finding an escape pod, but more bad news was awaiting me at the shop.
No, I need to get another shark head? Man.
Nevertheless, I got back to work serving the genuinely stupidly impatient customers. This guy orders, and exactly 45 seconds later, he gives up and heads home. And seeing as Dave has the stamina to run maybe 10 meters maximum, this is really unfortunate for him. Still made bank though. I equipped my triple axle the next day, as today I would kill another shark. I headed all the way right, collected some oxygen, and faced the beast. I was getting pretty good at this.
Easy, bro. He stood no chance.
So I headed further downwards, found a gun and also a new material.
Head or I can poison myself.
Swimming down into the darkness, looking for drone bits, I killed a piranha trying to kill me, then came across another saw shark.
Oh. I'm so awesome. Yay, nice.
Sending off the goods, I dove back in, just purely looking for ingredients this time. Unfortunately, while I was catching some squid, my drive ran out of storage, and this is just where it ends. Luckily, I got recording again in the sushi store and opened up the shop, but this time I needed to get the shark head to the woman. I handed it over, and she gave it a try. I think she likes it. I don't know. As it turns out, she was a recruiter and could help us hire new people. I upgraded my scuba gear a bunch, then dove back into the hole, and after some messing around, I found some boxing gloves as well as a literal sniper rifle.
Red sniper rifle, no way. Actually, just a sniper. Oh.
He got rolled. But I remembered that I had some explosives in my inventory and decided it was time for me to harvest the big boy. Yes, go into the bomb. Clown. Hello, I'm here for your flesh. I happily sent my meat over to Bancho and returned to the water, wanting to find the last 2 parts of the drone today. I swam all the way over to the limestone caves where I found some currents again. Yes, more drone parts. Camera lens, nice. Just need a motor now. Yes, there it is. And some bones as well. Okay, we can build the drone now. I quickly returned, and as I got out, Cobra thanked me for the bits and said the drone would be done the next morning. Then it was finally time to get another worker for the shop. Cost 0. Slave labor. I had a little chat with the new employee and quickly set up the menu for today before opening up. It went decently well, but I realized that soon enough we would be needing some new kitchen staff. But Bacon was back, and after Cobra said his drone was working and handed me some bombs, he left, and I noticed I had some mail. It was about a festival that was happening in 3 days, and I needed to cook a bunch of jellyfish themed dishes.
I guess I need to catch a bunch of jellyfish.
On top of this, Cobra was using his drone to operate a store. There I bought some explosives, then collected an eco health bracelet for my marine conservative efforts, which reduced damage taken by 10%. But it was time to open the doorway, so I headed down. Yes, I got the hammer.
Okay, I need to get this other jellyfish. Hey, nice. Off I go. There's a different type of jellyfish.
I collected them and eventually opened the door, which I blew to pieces. I carefully headed through and was met by a massive chamber with an impressive painting in the middle. I investigated it all, then was told to take a photo of the whole thing. I did, picked up an artifact for the doctor, and after quickly catching some fish, I attempted to escape. Bro, go. What?
Is he gone? Okay, nice.
Go, please. Bacon said that he'd be in touch soon, and driving off, another boat took its place. They turned out to be protesters. They soon buzzed off though, and Cobra told me that they were probably corrupt and taking big company bribes. I headed back once again, simply to collect a bunch of fish for today, then returned to the store. Awaiting us were 2 people, a reporter for a TV station and a sushi gourmet named Vincent. They challenged Bancho to cook up a brilliant dish in 2 days and left. I had luckily all the ingredients we needed, so after setting up the menu, I just served sushi. That night though, I saw 2 sea people seemingly arguing in the underwater chamber, probably about the thing that I had just stolen. Suddenly though, a giant tentacle burst through and took one of the people. Bacon Boy was back, and he told me to get a headlamp for the deep ocean and that he had cleaned the artifact that I could use. I checked Cookster before calling up Duff, who after I explained the situation to, told me that he had the perfect headlamp, but I would need to recover his anime figurine that he had lost in a sinking ship. So I headed down, but was suddenly faced with 3 pirates apparently trying to take the dolphins. So I pulled out my dart gun, but it did nothing. So I snatched up a basic rifle instead and took them all out. They were forced to retreat, and thanking me, making a heart, the dolphins left me an old charm. Predicting that it would make me swim faster, I headed down in search of the shipwreck. I eventually found it, but when I was about to grab the figurine, it was snatched up by a giant tentacle. Luckily, this didn't worry the brave Duff, who told me to return to the surface after I quickly took out a shark. As it turns out, the dolphin charm did in fact speed me up, and I was handed a tool to help me access the inside of the shipwreck. So I dove straight back in, arrived at the ship, and got to work opening up the exterior. Inside there was a whole new area, which after some exploration, I found a giant squid at the other end, holding the box. But I would be pushed away every time I got near. After some experimenting trying to get the squid to hit its own tentacle, I realized I could shoot its eye, and after some quick work it was forced to escape. The water person who was taken got rescued by their friend and ran away, leaving me to grab the tentacle left by the squid and the figurine. The model was unharmed, and Duff handed me the torch. We ended the day all together eating the squid tentacle, but someone was watching, and this person had a very large firearm. It was the day of the visit of the VIP, and of course Bacon Boy was back, telling me to venture deep into the ocean. He then threw up into the ocean and drove off. So I dove in, but was surprised when I saw the man with the big gun here to shoot me because I was hurting the ocean. He blew up a couple of fish, then we proceeded to fight.
Oh my, wait, that is dangerous, dude. Jeez, man, chill out. I love this guy. He's such a goof.
I headed down through the hole and tried my best to get as deep as I could, trying to find the sea people again. Eventually, I found another biome, the blue hole depths. There were a couple new fish and some annoying worms that I had to use a UV light on to get past, but eventually I once again found them.
It's a mer.
I headed up and was met by Bacon, who told me to collect some materials to get a translating device of some sort, but more importantly, a new ship was arriving. He told me to collect all of the other boss cards and that a new card pack would appear every time I entered a new area. I had a call.
Yo, reporter for the Weekly Fish. Name a single person who would read that. Okay, my bad day.
Udo basically asked me to take photos for his magazine, so I dove right in. But soon enough, I found some strange coral from which an octopus jumped out. It inked me, so I chased it up to a blocked cave. I was so annoyed at this creature that I cut open the door and headed inside. This stupid thing escaped again, but dropped a charm, which I happily grabbed. It gave me a cool boost, which was pretty exciting. But then it was time for the gourmet to try Bancho's sushi. He did some very badass cooking, and in no time at all, it was time for Vincent to try it. He absolutely loved it and even gave us a fridge, allowing us to serve beer for some reason. Some new applicants were also here, so I selected one that was good at cooking at a very high price, then spent the night serving dishes and pouring beer.
What's bad?
It was the day of the festival, and I was being spammed with posts, so I spent some time reading through them all.
Hey, like and subscribe. That is absolutely right, JY0202. You should all like and subscribe right now. Dude, 1,000 likes? Guys, if this video gets to 1,000 likes...
And since it was the Jellyfish Festival today, I decided to find some deep sea jellies that I could sell for a massive price. So I swam all the way down, eventually navigating my way into the depths. I headed through the worms with my torch and arrived in a new area.
Hello, squid jellies, I mean. Gum slippy. Nice. Go, bro. Oh, wait, I'm heavy. I need to find an escape pod. Wait, how do I make it out? Wait, I'm trapped in here. Dude, are you serious?
Well, that was unfortunate. So I headed back up, checked out a bunch of legendary cards I needed, then returned to the shop. Since it was the festival day, I got to work early chatting with Momo the cat, starting another hiring campaign, checking my available ingredients, setting up a whole bunch of jellyfish dishes, and when I was all done, relaxed for the afternoon. I was called back when night came that there was an angry customer, so I headed back and the man said he wanted a moray eel dish, which only came out during the night, and along with this, he gave me the ability to dive at nighttime, which was absolutely huge. We opened shop for the festival, getting another record-breaking amount of profit. I dove in the next morning and was met with a massive sea creature.
Whoa, it's a humpback whale.
Sorry, I was eating a chicken crimpy.
Damn.
The whale disappeared, unfortunately, so I decided to head down into the depths to increase my fish collection. I precautiously swum down a tight tube and arrived in a cool little area with sunfish swimming by in the background. The perfect photo taken, I headed onwards, avoiding a shark and noticing crabs on the floor.
Wait, I can't hit it?
Apparently, I couldn't, at least with my current tools, so I swum onwards, down past a sign saying definitely don't go downwards. There was a new jellyfish which really didn't want me to be here. I got past the second one and arrived at another opening.
Yo, what is this? Can I knock it out? Oh, what? Oh, wait. Oh, this is not good. He's so chill about it. So chill about, like, trying to kill me. Hey, yes, let's go. Rhinochimeridae, mate. Yep.
I decided it was about time to head back, so I swam past the shark, which started to chase me.
This is not good.
What? Dude, he sucked me. I took the pod up, talked to Udo about the photo, then decided since I was going for a night dive today, after quickly crafting myself a red sniper rifle, to relax for the afternoon. When night came, just so the shop would run smoothly, I returned and hired a new server, opened shop and tried to leave. Apparently I couldn't and was stuck serving tea and beer for the night. Still insane profits though. I read through some Cookster, then decided to complete some eco-watcher tasks, catch some jellyfish and catch some barracuda. So I leapt in and got hunting. I collected a bunch of them, and after gathering some smaller fish in the shallows for my collection, I sent them back over to Bancho, collected all of my eco-watcher rewards, and once again relaxed for the afternoon. When night fell, I jumped straight into the deep dark and kept my eyes peeled for any eels. I eventually found one and was happy to see it would sleep if I hit it with my dart gun, so I gathered a bunch of them as they were much easier than I had first anticipated. After realizing I wasn't allowed to go deep as it was nighttime, I found an escape pod and returned to the surface. When I got back to the restaurant, I filled the menu and opened up, finally serving the rowdy customer the eel dish that he wanted.
Oh, that's... Oh man, that's so awesome.
He told me to meet him out back, but I was a little suspicious, so I just served drinks for the night. Otto, the rowdy customer, was calling me, so I picked up and he said to head over behind the shop. So I did and was amazed at a completely new area for fish farming. He introduced me to hatching fish eggs in the pond, which you could look at through the camera. I was very excited about all of this. But before I headed out to get some fish roe, I went back to the shop where I discovered a function to train my employees which made them better at their job. It was very cheap, so I got to work leveling up my chef.
It's Saitama, bro. Both think you One Punch Man.
I also leveled up Billy the server a little before diving into the lake to catch some fish. I grabbed a whole bunch of them, but was disappointed to see I didn't grab a single fish egg until I returned to the surface.
Oh, lots! I got so much.
Really happy with this, I
Damn.
returned to the fish farm, but apparently I couldn't do anything with my fish eggs quite yet. So I dove back in and spent the afternoon catching all kinds of fish, coming back and opening up the sushi shop. Today, even with all of our customers, overall only one person wanting a beer was missed. Everyone else got served on time. Definitely deserving of a 4.6 rating. Otto was calling again, so I headed back to the fish farm where I was happy to see a bunch of new fish. I sent a lot of the little guys back to the kitchen as I didn't need them to multiply, and also marveled at my deeper ocean tank. With all that done, I headed back out to the ship, where I dove down wanting to collect a bunch of medium depth fish such as groupers, mackerel and barracuda, which I successfully gathered. Sending them all off, I decided that I wanted to take down the shark for possibly some shark eggs. Unfortunately, I had bought the wrong gun and needing to find a weapon crate to get a new one. I spent my entire dive down there searching, only finding one, which gave me a new harpoon tip. I eventually gave up with my storage tank filled with fish, returning to the shop to open for the night. I could comfortably enough just serve drinks, but when we also ran out of wasabi stopping all sushi production, things got a little out of hand and a bunch of people didn't get served. I didn't know how I could possibly do all of that. I read some mail the next morning, then headed back to the fish farm where I checked the progress and decided today I wanted to add another shark to my collection. First, I bought an expansion to the tank, then dove back in and managed to kill 2 sharks, then headed back up and gathered a tiger shark roe. On top of this, I wanted some fish from the very bottom breeding as well, so I dove all the way past everything and entered the depths of the blue hole. There, I fought through some worms and saw an oarfish.
What is that thing in the distance? Giant oarfish. That is so good, man.
I used my bullets on some jellyfish, then realized that there was a shark here, so I headed down to find some, picked up a new gun, and used it to kill 2 more sharks, gaining one of their eggs. Hoping that they would both show up in my farm the next morning, I tended to drinks and wasabi at the store. Checking in on my new fish the next day, I decided it was about time to get the microphone and stone tablet I needed for the Sea People translator. So I headed down and entered the shipwreck where I found the mic, before heading right until I located the doorway, entering and grabbing the tablet. I quickly caught some fishies and escaped, being thanked by Bacon and told that he would construct the device. Before I dove again, I checked my equipment and found my suit was maxed out at a depth of 350 meters, but as I went in, the loading screen showed a Nautilus that lived at a depth of 700 meters. It made me wonder if I could buy a new suit or something, or that was just information about the real life Nautilus but I wanted to find a way to get down there first, so swimming into the depths, I made my way through a pipe, and after killing a shark, eventually found myself in the deepest point I could go, around 225 meters. But I did find another doorway and some planks covering a hole, so there was still so much more to go. Bacon Boy had shown up again, handing me the translator. I also got a call from Duff, who told me that upgrading weapons was now available, which was exciting. So I upgraded my sniper rifle 1 level and watched Duff upgrade it, then headed down to find the Sea People. Eventually, I found them.
Yo. Swam. His body looks different. My name is Swam.
Swam told me to get 2 pieces of coral, then make them edible as a treatment for the unconscious person. Finding the 2 pieces of coral was easy enough, and after having to kill a shark, I headed back to the surface, and realized I hadn't been recording game audio today. But I was back soon enough and handed the coral to Bancho, who quickly whipped it up into a lunch. Diving back into the ocean, I decided before I treated the sea person, I would do something much more important. Increase my collection of fish cards. And so I spent my entire entire day doing exactly this. I got a whole bunch of fish eggs, then heading back to the shop, a strange girl approached. Her hand doll started screaming at me for some food. I decided that the best course of action was ignoring the problem and hoping it left, so I served drinks for the night, finally getting the 5-star rating. It was time for me to deliver the porridge, so I upgraded my air tank and dove right in, and after a normal amount of procrastination and getting lost, I arrived at my destination.
Yo, I'm back. I bought the coral porridge.
Ramo, the woman who was injured, asked me to carry her back to the Sea People Kingdom, and just happy it wasn't an escort mission, I headed out. Pleased to see she automatically made the worms hide. Midway through, we experienced a massive vibration worrying Ramo.
Hurry, human. Okay, I got it. Wait, you can stay here. I gotta get this box. Wait, one second. I just gotta disassemble this gun. Wait, I just gotta leave you down here with the crab. Wait, no, that's what yeah.
And unfortunately, we eventually arrived at a large blockage in the pathway. Our plan was to pull out a stake in the above rock, so they fell down and opened the pathway. And luckily for me, Bacon had the perfect gloves. So I headed up and was told he would have them tomorrow. But Swam and Ramo still needed help, and they could have been taken at any... I checked on my fish farm and relaxed for the evening, serving sushi that night, earning a solid 4.9. Bacon handed me the new gloves, so I entered the ocean. I had unlocked the ability to pick up rocks and smash wood, so I swam back down to the Sea People, and after chasing after the octopus again, which dropped another artifact, I said hello to them and pulled out the stake, making all of the rocks fall. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough, so I headed around back to another pile, which fell, opening up a massive entrance. We all headed through when suddenly a massive sea monster swam by, and entering another chasm, I was forced to fight it. Luckily for me, my weapon was way too strong, and after some close calls, I was able to take it down. They thanked me, and finally we opened up the doorway into the Sea People Kingdom. I got a really neat intro, and speaking with some guards, I was taken into the King's Palace. He told me that they needed help from the tremors that kept occurring, but I would first need to gain the people's trust. So they handed me a mirror that instantly teleported me back to the Sea Kingdom and let me go. When I arrived back at the boat, it was real late and the sushi shop was already closed. But when Yoshi arrived, it was finally time for me to learn about Bancho's backstory. Suddenly, the game became a playable story from Yoshi's perspective. She was working at a prestigious hotel, and a famous actor who was giving other hotels scathing reviews had a reservation. Me and the manager decided we would make Japanese food, hoping that she wouldn't ruin our reputation, and so entered young Bancho with hair. We explained exactly what we needed, and a couple of days later, Lewis the actor had arrived. We served up the normal food, but when she wasn't satisfied, Bancho decided to serve his famous deep-fried whole shark head. She was disgusted and left immediately. Bancho quit from that point and trained until he arrived here. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. I spent some time explaining the situation to Bacon Boy, who eventually left, leaving me to head to the village. It was genuinely beautiful and really large as well, but I needed 100 credit things, so I got to work.
Yo, is this a blacksmith's?
I needed the coral porridge for that guy, as well as to kill the big mouth shark to get back the children's ball. So I took the portal, which took me to the castle. Sorry, I was eating chicken crimpies. With my two objectives, I dove back into the ocean, but was met by a gigantic whale who seemed to be trying to say something, but I didn't know, so I mocked it and left. When I arrived in the deep, I got to work collecting all of the coral I needed.
Let's go, last piece.
And went hunting for the big shark. Unfortunately, he wasn't around, but I did discover I could drop rocks on the crabs to kill them, which was actually pretty satisfying. When I arrived back at the store, another VIP had arrived. Apparently, he was the director of Robot Samurai, and Bancho wanted to cook him a cool dish. But he needed quality rice, which Otto said he would get tomorrow morning. He told me the other ingredients and spent the night serving sushi. Otto was calling. I picked up and was sent over to his overnight creation, the rice farm. I was incredibly excited about this and quickly did some weeding, wondering what else I could possibly grow here. Then returned to the sushi shop where I handed Bancho the coral, who happily turned it edible. So looking into the mirror, I was transported to the village. Handing over the lunch, I was rewarded with some currency and credit. I proceeded to complete a mission and deliver some lunchboxes, and also bring some flowers to a statue, which I unfortunately lost when I went through the portal. They literally just disappeared. So I ignored it and headed to another house where they asked me to grab some seahorses from around the area. But apparently I needed some kind of tool. Not my problem. double my guess. Exiting the village, I quickly headed up and took out the shark, collecting the ball and heading up. I immediately returned to the village where I was happy to see the flowers had respawned and placed them at the statue, collecting my reward. Noticing that the lunchwoman needed my help again, I accepted a quest to get some tube coral, gave back the bowl, getting some credit, and exited again. But this time I got a brand new weapon, a sticky bomb launcher, which was pretty sick. But I knew the tube coral grew near whale bones, so I located some and grabbed the bits, heading back to the surface and serving drinks for the night. I went to check on my farm the next morning and everything seemed to be good, so I quickly checked on my fish farms as well before diving in, as the VIP movie guy was coming back tomorrow and I needed some ingredients. Luckily they weren't that hard and I was done relatively quickly. So as it wasn't night yet, I headed back to the village where I collected my coral reward and headed to the temple for another quest.
I heard this door went to the glacial region. It's being blocked though. Wait, that's interesting. Wait, can I go to a new place if I get like fire?
Inside, I was tasked with getting a stone slab from inside the record chamber from before, so I exited, swam all the way up and grabbed it, headed to the surface and returned to Bancho Sushi. Not missing one order that night, I once again hit 5 stars. It was stormy on day 28. I harvested my rice the next morning, then headed to the village where I handed Nemo the slab. She asked me to attend the wedding that it was for, so I happily watched. The arm of the statue unfortunately fell, so I returned to the ship where Cobra was nice enough to hand me a repairing tool. Setting up my things, I got fixing and soon enough it was back to normal. At this point, I was only 20 credits off, so I borrowed a book for the seed guy, giving me 90, then headed into the ocean as I needed to find a man with a turtle who had disappeared for the chef woman. Eventually, I found scraps of jellyfish lying around and in no time, I arrived at the man's home. Chasing down the mad turtle, it turned out it had swallowed a plastic bag, making it almost suffocate. Seems to me like very subtle messaging. Definitely correct though, if I see you throwing anything into the ocean that's not supposed to be there, I will appear outside your window at 4 a.m. When I got back to the surface, Sato the collector guy appeared, telling me to enter a vortex underwater. So I did and was faced with my third boss, the truck hermit crab. What I basically had to do was get explosive barrels from the floor and drop them, breaking its shell. After a couple of mishaps, I defeated it, rewarding me with a bit of shell and a new card for my collection. That night, the VIP was back, and after feeding him the dish Bancho had prepared, he exploded very cool-like and left us with a poster. How useful. I looked through my card collection, then headed back to the village, talked to the chef lady, and noticing the king was looking very happy, I took the portal over. He started talking about their divine tree and that I would have to go under to fix its roots or something. Unfortunately, they didn't have the key, so I couldn't go. Luckily, there was still a massive amount of things I wanted to do. Firstly, I wanted to feed Mucky, the troubled child. So I spent the day hunting trevally and soy sauce, the ingredients of the dish, and when I eventually found some, I returned to the surface, where I got Duff to upgrade my dart gun twice, which was pretty cool. But checking my phone, I realized that my farm needed my attention, so I headed over, picked all the weeds growing there, and returned to the shop. I quickly grabbed the dish the girl wanted and handed it over. She was grateful and handed me a bug net, allowing me to catch all kinds of fish too small for my harpoon, and asked for 5 Cleone. Also, this is when the date stops increasing. I don't know, it's just an early access thing. Duff fell asleep. Suddenly, lights everywhere started flashing, and he was transported into a concert. And it was time to cheer for his favorite artist's default anime woman. It was an awesome minigame that was actually kind of hard at some points in time, although I easily passed and was rewarded with a heart. This is when Duff woke up, looked over at his figures, and installed a new game on my phone called Leah's Run. Pretty awesome. I had a try the next morning, but getting a high score of 55, it's pretty difficult. The first thing I did was, now that I had a bug net, was head to the village where I spent some time collecting all the seahorses I could, because I had promised that to the game center person. Eventually I got the final one, handing them over. As a reward, the woman decided to give me a seahorse, which means I could participate in horse races. So I set one up, cheered my guy on, and got a modest 3rd place. But now was no time for relaxing, as I had another quest of a lost child in an underwater lake. So I spent some time searching the area before finally finding some signs pointing there. Entering the cave, I took a photo, then realizing that there was a goblin shark guarding the child. So I took it on, taking advantage of its massive turning circle, easily enough defeating it. I escorted the child back home before once again exiting, as I needed 5 Cleones for Mackie the child. I couldn't find 5, so I headed up to let them respawn, then returned to the depths where I saw a massive one in the distance.
Whoa.
I eventually got the last one, but was eaten up by a massive Cleone and was forced to face it. Luckily for me, they were easy as hell, and I stood victorious in no time at all, picking up a strange artifact. When I arrived at the surface, I quickly tended to my farm, then gave the Cleones to Mucky, along with the tablet which had a video of her father. She asked to work here, to which I said yes.
Nice. Free employee. Hey, let's go. Slave labor.
But now it was time to find a baby whale for the whale I had seen a long time back. Apparently I would be able to hear its calls, so I eventually located them and continued forwards into a cave. And there it was, the baby whale, albeit a little scared, so I happily pet it for a while.
That's awesome.
Now it was time to get it safely back home. I took care of some barracuda, some lionfish, and finally a shark, which was a little difficult seeing my weapon at hand was a dart gun. So I basically gave up when I saw 4 entire sharks.
No way.
Oh.
Oh my god. That's awesome.
I was taken to the surface where I saw the 2 whales happily playing, checking out the new cards I'd collected today and heading back to the shop. It was a very good day, finishing off with a solid 4.8 stars. I made some goals on day 31. I wanted to get every Marinka entry that was currently in the game, max out my suit, get every achievement, and complete all the Marine Conservative quests. So I had a quick look through all the fish I was missing, then dove down in search of some plankton that I could now get. So I collected tiger shrimp, which was new, then sent everything back to the shop, took a look again, and dove down when night fell in search of any night-only fish. I was happy to see that there were no night deep fish as I couldn't get there, and after some searching, I eventually found and took down a copper shark, adding to my entries. Seahorses were now my target, as I presumed most other fish I needed were in photos. I eventually found one in a little cave filled with pufferfish, then headed into the record chamber, where I found another one. On a roll now, I headed down to the deep ocean, where I realized I could trank the explosive jellyfish, adding it to my collection. I then found the entrance to the underwater lake, where I wasted a solid amount of time swimming from one end to the other, not finding one fish. I'd thought my luck had ended until I ran into the kelp farmer and his turtle again, this time with a photo opportunity. Happily taking it, I added the leatherback to my collection. I harvested all the wheat on my farm, then noticed my eco watcher things were all done, so that was at least one thing to tick off. I headed into the limestone cave in search of a couple more seahorses, as well as hoping to find a random photo opportunity. I eventually did end up finding a seahorse near a current. Happy to see I could now incredibly easily take down tiger sharks, I headed down to the village, exited, and tried to see if I could find any seahorses down here. Taking out the mega mouth with literally 2 shots, I dropped a stone on a crab, found 1 new seahorse, and bought an internet ad back at the shop. I crafted up a quarto axle the next morning, then buying some nets, I headed down looking for a stalactite cave that apparently existed in this game, but I couldn't find it anywhere, so I returned to the surface to recheck my eyes, but sure enough, 1 seahorse was from this mysterious place. I genuinely have no idea. But when I dived down that afternoon, I had got a brand new, never seen before map with so many new types of fish.
Let's go. Wait, that's 2 in 1 now. Wait, surely there's so many new fish, right?
I'm popping off. Sheep head down, I continued on my way, ignoring a bunch of tiny little fish.
What? What is going on? There's so many of them. Hello?
I was so excited to explore this brand new map when I was killed by an electric ray. That's unfortunate. But I did manage to hire and level up a new employee named El Nino.
He is so fast. That's awesome.
I excitedly dove again the next day, sure the map would be it's not even worth it. But when I dove again that afternoon, it was the same map, but I saw a massive creature swimming past, and sure enough, I was given a photo opportunity. But I wanted this to be perfect, and not knowing I would lose my opportunity, I waited for them to come back around. They never did. I literally swam around for 15 minutes catching tiny little fish until I eventually thought maybe they would come back tomorrow. Back at the shop, things were doing well. Upgrading Mucky a little more, I literally only had to make wasabi. Everything else was automatically dealt with. Scrolling through some Cookstar, I was happy to see the map was similar enough to the whale one, so I headed over to the spot and waited there for a while, then decided that I was wasting my time, instead swimming left to search for the stalactite cave that apparently existed. Unfortunately, I I didn't look at my air and was killed by a shark, so I spent some time upgrading my net gun, which I had unlocked, and harvesting my wheat before heading back down, this time searching for the sticky bomb launcher found in the depths. I didn't find it, and entering the village, I accepted some quests to deliver some items, returning to the surface and scraped some wasabi. I had some things to deliver, so entering the village, I headed over to the blacksmiths, who instead of collecting billboard items, asked me for some opal. I already had some, so he brought me over to the divine tree to help him pick some fruits. I didn't really know what I was doing, but after some careful aiming and some positive commentary,
Yeah, GG.
I was able to finish, being promised a brand new store soon. I then entered a game parlor where I was asked to find an octopus who had apparently escaped and loved to follow glowing jellyfish, but I got distracted on the way, talking to a farmer who said I could use some underwater farm space if I bought him a good dish. So after working out you could deliver the billboard quests at the board, I headed out into the dark in search of a glowing jellyfish. I found it and followed it up to a hole where I could see the tiny animal. Catching it, I brought it back and decided since I was at the game parlor to play some games. First, I tried a game of sharks, which I obviously won, then a game of which hermit crab stole my pearl, which I also obviously won. So I quickly returned to the mainland where I handed over the ingredients to Bancho, who whipped up a dish for the farmer, and swimming over I handed it to him, and I think he liked it a little bit. He promised me some farmland, so I sat in anticipation for the night. I excitedly swam over to the blacksmith's, but unfortunately the store wasn't yet ready. Same story with the farm. So I headed out with a couple of objectives to get the sticky bomb launcher and a seahorse, but these plans were changed when I picked up an underwater grenade launcher from a chest.
Wait, this is awesome. That is sick.
I killed a megamouth using it, picking up a new creature, grabbed another shark and headed back to the surface where I checked my phone and dove right back in. Not seeing any whales, I headed downwards where I spent some time fishing for ingredients and trying to find the stalactite cave. I was unsuccessful. At this point, I was only 5 sea creatures off completing my Marinka collection, so after quickly doing some weeding at my farm, I headed down to the village as there was easy access to the deep areas. But first, I had a new seahorse I wanted to try out in the races. Bringing him out, I got cheering and absolutely rolled everyone else, unlocking a bunch of new races. But I thought my guy was getting a little tired, so I exited and was happy when I found another grenade launcher getting 67% to the blueprint. I spent the day searching around for some amethyst as I had a quest to collect some. After getting lost multiple times, I eventually located some, took out a shark, and returned to the surface. That night, we had an unbelievable $4.6 thousand in profit. I upgraded my quadro axle to level 2, then headed down to the village where I visited Tenzin in his castle, then exited the area, today determined to get the photo of the whale that I missed. So I took care of a shark in the place I needed to stay, grabbed some oxygen, and sat there until they showed up. They never did. I was very excited as the kelp map was back, so my sights set on a zebra seahorse, I swam downwards. I was guessing at this point that the stalactite caves were just the limestone caves because it has stalactites. Unfortunately, I was apparently incorrect in this thought, and after a thorough investigation, I headed down into the depths in search of a grenade launcher or a sticky bomb. I was unsuccessful, but getting some good quality meat, which meaning to bring to the surface but not wanting to waste the map, I swam all the way up. This turned out to be a great idea when I found a zebra seahorse just chilling, eliminating any need to find the mysterious cave at all. It seemed like kelp map was getting really common, but that didn't matter to me as I spent the entire time not enjoying the scenery, but trying my best to spot a tiny little yellow seahorse that apparently lived in this area, as well as keeping an eye out for the whale who would hopefully show up at some point. Using my net gun, I took out a bunch of annoying rat catfish and got revenge on the electric stingray for killing me that one time, but didn't find this seahorse even after reloading the entire map. I headed in on day 43 with little to no hope, just wandering around, killing a shark and not wanting to search too hard. This was when I was just swimming through an unassuming hole and found one. Yes! Dude, I didn't know what word I was trying to say for a bit there. This was absolutely huge. My spirits lifted, I dashed on down to the limestone caves where I could find the last seahorse, and literally the first one I found, this happened. Yes, it was! Let's go! Yes, wait, seahorses are done, actually.
Alright. I'm gonna wait for the whale now.
That was my final goal, as I had already completed all of the achievements. Checking out a photo of yesterday's dinner, I dove down and noticing it wasn't the whale habitat, I swam around aimlessly for a little, catching a bunch of little fish with my net gun, and basically hoping for a better map next dive, which unfortunately turned out to be exactly the same. This isn't worth it. Back at the sushi shop, I saw that since seahorse skewers were so expensive, I decided to fill the menu with 30 of these dishes. I happily spent the day grinding wasabi subby in the corner and helping out on rare occasion, making a whole bunch of money. It was another terrible spawn the next morning, but after taking a quick look around hoping for some whales, I didn't get discouraged as today I had something else I needed to do. Swimming down into the medium depths, I decided to spend the dive restocking on a bunch of meat for the shop, as recently I was selling lower and lower quality meats. I was very happy to see my net gun was able to take down relatively large creatures, and a bunch of them at that. I managed to take down a tiger shark with just my harpoon gun, dealing the final blow with my knife, but my luck ended with the next dive when it still wasn't the one I needed. I even tried again at night, but to no avail. At least I had some pretty good fish to sell in the shop. Kelp was really not what I wanted, but this map was, and today I was determined to get the stupid photo that I'd missed the opportunity to get. So I just swam around waiting near enough to the photo area, collecting oxygen when I needed it, and generally just waiting. Sometimes I wonder if I had hallucinated the entire thing. I sat for 20 minutes, even jump scaring myself with the sound, because I was watching back the footage of my lost opportunity. So of course I was instant in recognizing I dove into the exact right map.
Wait, this is the exact map. Wait, this is it.
And there it was.
Yes! Oh. Wait, go. Where is it? Wait, I went the wrong way. Wait, please. Yes! Yes! Yes!
And so the photo was taken and my journey came to a close.
Yes. I'm done, man. Every fish that I can get that is in the game currently, I have.
Hey, editing Red TM here. As you can clearly see, I was still missing the turtle, but I still don't know where it is, so please tell me in the comments. I'd appreciate that.
Thanks so much for watching this little compilation. There's a proper-ish video coming around 2 weeks, so look forward to that. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Please subscribe if you enjoyed it all, and I'll see you again later.